So about the people I talk to or know about them, and I told you just now a story about this couple, and I know this to be a true story. And well, oh yeah, I didn't get to the good news part of it. That no, they decided they came to their senses. This couple, you're probably wondering. Okay, tell the rest of the story. Well, this couple came to their senses and they said, "Oh no, we can't do this because you know either we both die or even worse, one of us dies and then the other just left to suffer and maybe in a debilitated state, etc., etc." Right? Clock ticking on them. So they decided not to go ahead with it. Good for them. But the learning lesson part of it is when this gal says, "Okay, I'll do it. I'll follow my sword," even next day appointment with the stab center, right? Then she hears this multitude of voices. "We got her. We got her." It's like they're fishing. They're casting nets out, right? These entities. They're the ones that Jerry Marzinski and others have been talking about all along, intimately connected with the treatments. But that's the nature of this multiple threat environment in which we reside, right? It's multiple. It's not just this dimension. It's not just what the reductionists, the scientific reductionists would have us believe that only things you can touch and smell and taste and what have you are any threat to you, right? No, that's not the case at all. It's right. So we talked about the frequency aspect. Okay, we see it's over the way. I think the way this whole thing was kickstarted in places like Iran and like New York State, New York City, other places where the first responders were talking about, oh, these people were coming in with serious respiratory issues, and the protocols take care of it. They finish them off. But they were doing this to hordes of people. New York City alone, imagine just the carnage that was going on there. But that's how they kickstarted it. The backstory for the whole lab release thing, from that place, right? The whole lab release story. See, the lab release story to the current madness, ongoing madness, uh, is parallel to Ramsey Youssef uh, armed Islamic Front backstory of uh, hijacking airliners and crashing them into places like the armed Islamic group. They wanted to hijack a plane and crash it into the Eiffel Tower. Yeah, maybe, maybe not. Armed Islamic group, or all likelihood, was probably a controlled asset anyway, right? Then you have Ramsey Youssef, the so-called 20th hijacker. Long time, long time British intelligence, CIA asset, right? This guy.
Yeah.
And he supposedly, or whoever his handler is, comes up with the Bojinka operation, hijacking multiple airliners and then crashing them all over the place. Okay, that was the backstory months and years before September 11th, 2001, right? All this chatter in the background about all that going on, and suddenly, oh, it happens, right? Well, we've known about this. Why didn't they do anything about it? Blowback, all this other crap ensues. This talking head nonsense, right? Well, it's a similar thing with the lab release and the gain of function research and North Carolina being involved, yada yada yada, right? And then you throw in, oh yeah, of course, sewer scum like the main pharmaceutical humanitarian culprits, let's say, right? You throw their names into the mix. Oh, there you go, backstory, right? But again, just as a 9/11, where again, you've heard me talk about this too. I don't ascribe to the hijacked planes theory, which I think is utter nonsense. Why would you, even with so-called global hawk remote piloting capability, why would you make the operational scenario so much more difficult than you need to when you can just endlessly lie over and over and over again on the media, right? So this whole thing about the hijacked airliners, that's a non-starter, a complete non-starter for me. But to kickstart the whole thing, they used frequencies. Absolutely, they did.
Yeah.
It's a frequency war. And what happens? All these people are getting beamed. Shortness of breath. Why? Oxygen, like depletion, of course. A lot of the other symptoms they described, par for the course. What they were saying was the symptoms of this so-called dreaded, like, black plague thing that's supposedly going on, right? No, they were just getting beamed. The beating can induce different physiological reactions, sensations, etc., etc. Like, especially from a MyLab perspective, someone getting beamed, a certain part of the brain induces sleep, a certain part of the brain induces aggression, etc., etc., etc. And then you have theater of the mind, the remotely induced virtual environment, astral dreamscape, training scenarios, right? You're literally in a virtual reality world, and a lot of the training that goes on, and some of it is even astral. It's not just your consciousness has been hijacked, right? So the point of relevance is the frequency manipulation and frequency modulation is quite sophisticated. So if you wanted to blanket an area, and the Spanish researchers, I forget their name, but they have that great channel, and did all the initial breaking news about the graphene. It was that Spanish team, right? And I think one of them was talking about how it was just beaming. It was just 5 Golf, right? 5G, just blank, and they even had maps showing where all these transmitters were, right? And where these clusters and outbreaks occurred thereafter, right? So if they want to play that card again, the frequency modulation card, right? The beaming card, to create another wave, right? Marbury, whatever the hell they're going to call it this time. The zombie, infection or whatever. They just simply crank up the transmitters. But the thing about it this time is there'll be so many people that have all literally been hardwired from these treatments. And on top of that, there's going to be people in society who already have the DNA molecules in the brain, et cetera, right? It's extrapolating. That could be hundreds and maybe thousands of people or more that have undergone these DNA molecule procedures by one or more types of ET or ET cyborg races, right? People ain't seen the half of it yet.
That's right.
Getting back to that multitude of voices, when I heard that story about, the gal deciding, well, I'm going to follow my sword and take one for the team, so at least we have, one income stream, right? And then this chorus of voices, we got her. When I heard that story, it reminded me, and I'm trying to do research. I used to know this stuff off the top of my head, but it was the kid who, along with his best friend, dabbled in Satanism, and basically he got possessed by a really malevolent entity or entities. Got a hold of, I think it was a 44 Magnum, shot his father and shot his stepmother, both in the head, as they lay sleeping.
Good God.
And then he stole their car, drove down to the nearest service station, got out, and shot the attendant dead. Anyway, long story short, he gets arrested. When they brought him in to his arraignment, and they had him in the prison jumpsuit and stuff, they had the CCTV cameras on him, and his eyes were all glazed over. He had this maniacal grin in his face. He was just laughing. He's all alone, but the cameras are on him, and he's just laughing maniacally because he's entity infested, right? Because he was, getting into all that Satanism and and what have you. Anyway, he became a born-again Christian in prison. Eventually, he after he started proselytizing, he was preaching and trying to mentor others in prison and on death row. Because this is Texas where he did this, so that, I don't know about now, but back then, it was not too long ago, last 20 years or so, it was death by lethal injection. And so he became a born-again Christian in prison, and then eventually his appeals ran out, and they executed him by lethal injection. Now, before he died, and after he became a born-again Christian, he started giving interviews, right? And in one of the interviews, remember a moment ago I said that they had CCTV cameras on him. He had like a yellow jumpsuit. They had him in a small room, and they just arrested him, brought him in. And he was just like laughing maniacally to himself. There was no one else in the small room with him. They just had a camera on him. Totally entity infested. That's why he shot his father and stepmother as they lay sleeping, about 10 p.m. at night. And that wasn't enough for him. He drives down in their car, they're dead by now, in their car, drives down to the nearest service station, guns down the poor guy that happens to be doing a night shift, right? Death penalty, lethal injection. He said when they brought him into jail, and it must have been after he was videotaped with the CCTV, like laughing maniacally. It must have been after that, because he said as they put him in the jail cell for the night, and he lay down on the bunk just totally disconsolate, absolutely bummed out, starting to come to his senses, he said that he could hear multitudes of voices, right, all laughing at him as they exited his body.
Wow.
He could hear clairaudiently, because they completely taken him over as a host by now, organic portal time. He could hear them laughing in unison, chorus of them, as they're leaving his body, and he could feel energetically that they're leaving his body too. And that's the thing. A lot of these entities can wreak havoc with the human energy system, human energy fields, for that matter. It's not just the bioelectric energy system within our anatomy, but the energy bodies, plural, that we have, right? These entities can muck with all that, but energetic implants is a whole other subject, right? It's beyond the physical implants. So this guy says, as he's laying in his bunk, cell door closed, the enormity of what he'd done under malign entity influence, because he was dabbling in all kinds of Satan stuff, had really struck home. And then at that moment, the entities left him laughing. And he felt them, their energy leaving his body. He said this. So, the person who related that story, the gal who said she heard, oh, we got her. Then later on, they both decided momentarily to fall on their swords. So we got both of them. I can't help but think that if they're not the same types of entities that were exiting that guy and kept from life, and you don't remember the guy's name. He was executed on death row in Texas, though, by lethal injection. He said they were laughing. You can hear multiple voices, all just laughing at him as they left his body. So whether it's the same entities that were saying, we got her, when the gal momentary lapse of reason, create Pink Floyd song. Whether it was the exact same entities, same species of entities, whatever the case may be, or similar, or entirely different species altogether, just are of that archontic Luciferian mob of all various types of entities, whatever the case may be, really have a emotional investment, among other things, in the impending demise of the human race. It's like they're absolutely getting off on it. They're absolutely getting a rush, getting a charge off of it. We see this manifest at the surface level, right? And nowadays, the surface level is a relative term because some of the things that are passing for normal in the surface world these days is just so abnormal. But we talked in previous podcasts about the replacement factor, the pod people, invasion of the body snatchers factor, right? And someone's not wearing a mask or something or whatever, and all these mask holes and vax holes point at them, and do a Donald Sutherland like in the Invasion of the Body Snatchers movie. That's happening at the workplace where, see, it's not just a smug, we did it, now you have to do it too, as far as the treatment is concerned, because there's a lot of conflict in the various employment places where some have knuckled under or some were all for the steps to begin with, so they go ahead and take it. And those that haven't taken it yet, who are manifesting hesitancy, quote unquote, those ones that have been stabbed, it's like they're a total hive mind consciousness. They're just browbeating, you got to do it too, you got to do it too. You stop being so selfish, right? And it's not just that they're arrogant, stupid pod people, but it's the fact that these entities, these multitudes of entities will be in and swirling in and around them. They're speaking through these hosty pod people too, right? And that's on top of being browbeaten by your doctor. It's a pandemic. It's a pandemic of the unstabinated, right? So they're getting browbeaten by their families, browbeaten by their partners, browbeaten by their co-workers, browbeaten by their doctors, voices in their heads screaming at them, do what's right, you're gonna lose your job. That's like a full court press, right? That's like all out pre-invasion bombardment, right? And I've known of cases where people were crying as they got the stab because they didn't want it, but they were bullied and pressured and hectored into it. Hectored and badgered, bad English there. So they knuckled under and took the stab or stabs, right? And there's a lot of people that regret their decision too, because now they're pushing for the boosters and all that stuff, right? So they already knuckled under for number 1 and 2, and now they're pushing more on them. Where does it end, right? But it's that high consciousness where even at an unseen inner planes ether level, all these parasitic, supernatural piranha type creatures are just nipping away and biting and snapping at you, right? If you happen to be clairaudient, you can hear them, right? Mm-hmm. Now, the stories I've shared today, small sample size to be sure, but I've read other accounts that people have shared where they're in comms with psychics, readers, mediums, medical intuitives, and they're describing a similar thing with these people that have gotten the real ones, not the same thing, the real ones. They're describing being the sensation of feeling totally cut off, like in an empty void, except, separated from source, separated from God. It's not an empty void though, because there's all these energies there. So it's a feeding frenzy. Think about those old National Geographic or other nature documentaries of like Komodo dragons having a feeding frenzy or or sharks having a feeding frenzy, right? That's what's going on at multiple levels. Because increasingly, the people around you, they're plugged into the Borg Collective, right? Trust no one, because any one of them could turn at any moment, go totally hive. That's why you gotta watch that classic Dark Skies. It only lasted for like some of the best shows I've noticed, like the Blade series. That only lasted one series because towards the last two episodes, especially of that one and only season of Blade, I mean, they're getting into bloodlines, they're getting into secret societies. It was just hardcore. And someone said, okay, enough is enough. We're not going to show them anything beyond this, right? And that classic show, Dark Skies, is similar because the alien race they were up against, and it's like a docudrama where the characters live through some key moments, known moments in the court history. The JFK assassination, Roswell, et cetera, et cetera. The main characters weave in and out of all these real life historic events. Francis Gary Powers, U-2 pilot getting shot down over the Soviet Union, et cetera, et cetera. They tied in all these real historic events to the alien invasion scenario. And the aliens are up against, spoiler alert, going at least as far back as Roswell in the story, Dark Skies, which again was only a couple of seasons. I have to check. Was that the reason they were called a hive is because they took people up as hosts, took over the minds, took over the bodies, right? And one by one, and they took over the key institutions, the key agencies, like not just the FBI, but like Majestic Flow. They started taking over some of the Majestic operatives, some of these aliens, right? The hive. And that's what it is today. It's the hive consciousness we've talked about for so long, the hive mind parasite virus. It's playing out in real time now. Now, thankfully, if you go to some of these, health and wellness type sites, they have helpful hints that, for those who unfortunately were compelled or coerced, whatever the case may be, into taking these treatments. One has to hope for the best, but apparently there are ways and means to at least mitigate the damages and allow real healing to kick in. And eventually, if things work out, just eradicate all the stuff that one's been contaminated with. Because this next go around, when they start cranking out the frequencies again, with all the stuff, all the bots, all the hydras and all the tendrils that are spreading out inside of people, inside of their noggins, et cetera, being literally hardwired, DNA hardwired into some bizarro AI mainframe supercomputer or something, right? Luciferian powered, demiurge powered. We just don't really know what's going to come next. We have an idea. Yet, the zombie card may still be on the table to be played or not played, depending on circumstances. There has definitely been an upsurge in ET activity, real ET activity. So we just gotta hold firm, hold the line, right? Until enough people reacquire, reassemble, reacquaint themselves with their multidimensional selves. And it's not going to take a gigantic number of people to do this. Critical mass will be reached with far fewer people than one might assume would be the case. So the battle has been joined. Humanity, real humanity, not the sheep ones, real humanity, not the de-evolved ones, the real humanity that's making a stand now. Yeah, we're making our presence felt. So things are starting to get interesting now. Hang on to your hats. There's a lot more to come. And this is going out to a general audience. The reason I call the commentary Meet the Reptilians is, well, it's a reptilian, for the most part, agenda. Keeping in mind there are a lot of other players, not just the reptilians, but the reptilians, the Draco, or the factions out of the Orion constellation that go back to the Orion Wars millions of years ago. And they're still key players in all this. So, again, hang on to your hats. Things are really going to start to get interesting in the next couple of years. By the time 2025 rolls around, which is a scant, we scant 3 years before 21. There's no telling the kind of changes we'll be seeing. Okay, so for our listeners here on the Cosmic Sports Show, if you like what we do, if you believe in what we do, please go to thecosmicswitchboard.com, sign up and become a member. And also for our members, stay tuned in, and we'll see you on the flip side for our members. I wanna feel just like this. I wanna feel just like this.
Well, the global elite group known as the Bilderbergs have just arrived in Washington, D.C. for their 68th annual Bilderberg meeting, in which they intend to discuss how they can make the world better and how they can change policies and rules, to better benefit their personal agenda of world peace. Weak. As if they really want world peace. Because a lot of what I believe that they're discussing is things like how they're going to get rid of that pesky little thing called a Constitution in America, not to mention the Bill of Rights, and of course, capitalism. Can't have that when you want to implement socialism and communism, and things like, of course, how they're going to usher in an entire system in which they can social score their people based off of how environmentally friendly you are, or how about transhumanism, or getting rid of that cash system so everything can be controlled, and of course, we got to get rid of any and all fossil fuels and implement the new Green Deal style agendas. That is what I believe they're really all about. But what I'm about to show you in today's broadcast is not what they intend to talk about, but also the participation list. And this is only the stuff they admit, by the way. But before I do, just a quick break. Now, over the years, you've probably tried different investments in stocks and mutual funds. So they can be up and down and quite literally all over the place. But with inflation running at 8.5%, the highest in 40 years, do you really need uncertainty? Being able to sleep at night knowing that your investments are not going to crash are worth their weight in gold. And speaking of gold, if you have been jumping from one investment idea to another, then now is the time to get a gold IRA with noblegoldinvestments.com. With gold, you shield your gains from taxes. Not only that, but you keep the real value of your wealth. You own a global asset, something tangible. And last but not least, you protect your wealth against an economic crash. What's not to like? And this month, Noble Gold Investments is giving away this 3-ounce silver coin with any cash value over 20K. Right now, I want to encourage you to get on over to noblegoldinvestments.com. Give them a call at 1-877-646-5347 and talk to one of their no-hassle specialists. Now, if you want a little bit more information about how you can save money, about gold, silver, precious metals, the history of money, or even the evolution of money, then I want to encourage you to also check out their YouTube channel right here. And it's under Noble Gold Investments. I'll leave a link in the description box below. But on there, you can see they've got some awesome detail on the history of money and even the evolution of money. And this series is a short clip that shows you how money came to be and why it's important to understand the national debt and other investment headaches like inflation, which we're currently going through. So check it out at noblegoldinvestments.com. Go to their YouTube channel and subscribe there. Want more information? Check it out in the description box below. All right, back to the broadcast. So let's first dive into this mysterious Bilderberg group, because there's a couple things you should know in case you aren't aware about this group. First of all, only the elite of the elite of the elite of the elite are invited, and you're going to see that when you see the participation list. Second, it's very secretive. Journalists are invited. They're part of the conversation there, but you're not allowed to discuss what is actually said at these events. You keep that information to yourself. Now, Bilderberg does give us kind of a rundown of some of the topics that they claim they're going to be talking about, but since none of the information is leaked and none of it's recorded, nobody really knows if that's actually being discussed. But according to their website, which I'm going to show you, that's what they claim is being discussed. The other thing is this organization has been around and meeting since 1954, and of course, still going strong today. And how the world, and ever wonder why the world has changed so much since 1954 through today? I don't know. I'll leave that for you to decide. But let's go straight on in to the Bilderberg website so you can see it for yourself. And by the way, I've been reporting on this stuff for quite some time. If you've been following me, you're well aware of that. But here it is, the Bilderberg's meeting official website. Yes, this is their official website. And I'm going to click on meeting 2022 right here, because that's the one I can focus on. And you can see they've started leaking notes on their meeting since 2016. This is fairly new, by the way. They wanted to have more transparency with the public, so they started in 2016 doing this every year. And you can see a gap here between 2019 and 2022. That's because of the pandemic. They skipped a couple of years. But here it is. The 68th annual Bilderberg meeting is taking place right now, June 2nd through the 5th, 2022 in Washington, D.C. It says their 68th Bilderberg meeting will take place there in June in Washington, D.C. About 120 participants from 21 different countries have confirmed their attendance. As ever, a diverse group of political leaders and experts from industry, from finance, from academia, from labor, and the media have been invited. The list of participants is available here. Now, I'm going to take you to that participant list because I just want to show you a couple of people that are attending. So let's go to that. And I've kind of highlighted a few names already here, right off the top. Chairman of Goldman Sachs International, LLC, right there. We also have the Shell CEO and the chairman and CEO of Pfizer, and not to mention William J. Burns, the CIA director. Moving on a little bit, you'll probably recognize this next name here, Henry Kissinger. Obviously, he goes pretty much every year. We also have the Economist here, a newspaper personnel as well. Let's move on a little bit. We also have the VP and Chief AI Scientist of Facebook, aka Facebook Incorporated. So we have social media, we have Henry Kissinger, we have CIA, we have regular media, and here's some other ones here I want to show you as well. And this is the CEO of Shopify, the Prime Minister here. We've got Prime Ministers going, Ambassador of Ukraine to the US. We also have editor-in-chief of The Economist here as well. So you can see a wide range of what's going on there. Moving on a little bit, we have Eric Schmidt. I'm sure that name rings a bell. Google, Google, Google. And then we have the CTO of Microsoft Corporation. We have chairman of Atlantic Futures Forums. And then, of course, this little name you might recognize, especially if you live in Arizona, Kristen Sinema, the one who gave the Democrats all the gray hair. Yeah, she is now on the list as well. Moving on a little bit, we have Peter Thiel. He pretty much goes every year, the president of Thiel Capital, LLC. We also have the Secretary General of NATO. Interesting, considering what's going on with Russia, China, US, Ukraine, all of that. And then David Petraeus. So you guys might recognize a few of those names. We wanted to bring the participation list names to you because I think it's rather important to know that the people that are attending these meetings are not your just regular Joe Schmo CEOs, and they're pretty dang big names, prime ministers, high people in academics and scientists and CEOs and executive people, and not to mention the likes of billionaires and the whole line. Senators, congressional leaders, all of it. But here's something else I want to mention is some of the people who have attended in the past, which I have shared because I've been following this ever since they've started publishing it on 2016. But Bill Clinton, the IMF director, Christine Lagarde, Bill Gates, all of these names have been on past participation lists. So just to give you an idea of who go. By the way, not everybody who attends is necessarily listed. I believe those are the public names. I think there is still an option where you don't have to be listed, but I'm not 100%, but I believe, knowing how mysterious they are, that could be the case. The next question is, what's on the agenda? What are they going to discuss? Now, there's one thing that they're going to discuss that really chills me, or a couple things that really chill me to the bone that you need to be aware of. But this is just the stuff, by the way, that it admits to be talking about. We don't really know other than what they tell us, because obviously then the information is allowed out, right? But take a look, going back to their main page here, the Bilderberg meeting, going back to that meeting 2022, and here it is. The key topics for discussion this year are, and a lot of these repeat, by the way, geopolitical realignments, how they're going to align graphical areas and politics. Interesting. NATO challenges. I believe that's on there because of what's going on right now between Russia and Ukraine in the war. We have China. China pretty much makes it 90% of the time on the list. Indo-Pacific realignment, that makes it off and on. And then we have US tech competition. We have Russia. Russia. By the way, I'll show you in a moment, but Russia has made it every single year. Interesting to see where we were back in 2016, where we are now. But Russia's been on the list consecutively every single year, and China for the most part as well. Number 7 chills me to the bone. Now, I'm going to expand on that in a moment. The continuity of government and the economy. In case you're not aware what that exactly means, continuity of government is the principle of establishing defined procedures that allow a government to continue its essential operation in case of a catastrophe such as a nuclear war. And I'm sharing that for the Democrats and liberals out there listening, by the way. I know most of you know what that is. But basically, it's a plan in place in which a shadow government, if you will, can take over and run while this chaos is going on. And I'm going to expand on that in a moment. Number 8, disruption of the global financial system. It's interesting that that's on there because right now there is a massive disruption. We have inflation, we have a shipping supply crisis, we have financial crises all across the globe. And of course, this is the topic of discussion. And I wouldn't put it past them. I don't know, obviously, it's my opinion, that they are talking about things such as a cashless society, such as cryptocurrency, such as how to put systems in place which they can control, more or less, money. They've always been about that. Number 9, disinformation, because they can't have real information leaking out. So they label anything they don't want to talk about disinformation. Then we have energy security and sustainability, aka Agenda 2030, aka New Green Deal, aka green policies, and the whole 9 yards. 11, post-pandemic health. 12, fragmentation of democratic societies, trade and deglobalization, and of course, Ukraine is thrown in there as well. Now, just to show you some of the past meetings, you can see some things here that have been on past and are going on future. So climate, China, Russia, you can see the future of capitalism. That was 2019, 2018. And I'm just going through this very briefly. You can see Russia yet again on that one. 2017, here we go. We have China, we have Russia, we have Middle East, and of course Trump, because they didn't like what Trump was doing. That's 2017. And 2016 here, Russia and China yet on it again. And there's that as well. So as you can see, there is a lot of similar threads that they discuss year after year after year. And coincidentally, it's the same stuff is kind of just, happening and advancing as we go along. But with that, let's go back to the one point that I really want to hone in on that meeting in 2022, and that is number 7, the continuity of government and the economy. Now, the reason that I think this is important, because why are a bunch of internationalists who are from many different countries, 21 different countries all across the globe, talking about continuity of government? This here in America, we do have that. In America, we have continuity of government. Why is this of any topic to a global organization? Why would they discuss something like that? And I think in light of what happened with the COVID-19 pandemic, are they afraid something's going to go and happen in the future? And what is the plan, right? Why are you discussing things like that? And maybe it's not directed at America, but I can't get the feeling that this is something that we actually have in America. And I'm sure they've got it other countries as well. But it really strikes me as odd that they're discussing it. And here's why. If you go to the whitehouse.gov, they have a whole background on what the continuity of government is, and it talks about it a little bit. The U.S. has a plan in place to continue the operation of the government following catastrophe on the nation's capital. And they have a National Security Presidential Directive 51, and I'm going to get into presidential directives in a moment. It goes on, very deep within a 102-page national continuity plan is the strategy for mass evacuation, relocation of government, how the military and everything respond. And basically, it entertains the idea of a shadow government being involved, because in this continuity of government plan, we don't really know the details. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know who's in charge, if you will, how it's going to flow, or any of that. But there's kind of the idea. Now, this leaked out, and I did an entire report on this on Restricted Republic, but this leaked out about, I want to say, a little over a week ago, about a week ago, a little over a week ago. But in the New York Times has came across documents of the president's plans, which stem from many, many presidents prior, of what they will do in the event of the apocalypse. They basically, same thing as what they would do with continuity of government. Here it is. Documents shed some light on secret U.S. plans for apocalypse scenarios. It goes on to state, newly disclosed documents have shed a crack of light on the secret executive branch plans for apocalypse. Yeah, like a nuclear attack, when the president may activate wartime powers and national security emergencies. Until now, the public knowledge of what government put in these classified directives, which invoked emergency and wartime powers granted by Congress or otherwise claimed by president, have been limited to declassified descriptions. And they include things like imposing martial law, rounding up people deemed dangerous, and censoring news from abroad. And by the way, they are not sharing this, and it has not been made known to Congress. Now, I went in this in detail. I don't want to retouch on it, but basically this is about in the event that they have to invoke some kind of continuity of government in the event of a nuclear attack. And here's some of the stuff that got leaked And what got leaked are the Presidential Emergency Action Documents, which they're calling PEADs. Now, what are these PEADs? Well, they're proclamations, messages to Congress in the event of an emergency. And some of these directives include things like this. And I believe there's 56 of them as of 2017. Obviously, we don't have them all. We don't have, we don't really have them, but what we do have is what they've done in the past. And here's some of the things they've done in the past. As you can see, authorized detention of alien enemies and other dangerous people, suspended the right of habeas corpus, provided various forms of martial law, issued a government warrant permitting search and seizures of property. We have established military areas, suspended production of the Federal Register, declared state of war, authorized censorship of news reports. And I can only say that that would expand today. But it's interesting that continuity of government is on the list this year for the Bilderbergs. And this is in the middle. And the reason why I guess this is throwing up red alarms for me is because right now we are in a state of chaos in America. We have warnings from everyone pretty much about the economy, how we're going to have food shortages, how we're going into a recession. We are in a recession, they just don't want to admit it. How we're having supply chain crisis and all these crises, job shortages and all of these all at once. So do they see things getting to the level where something like this might take place? And God, I hope not. Anyhow, wanted to bring you the latest on all of that. Thanks again for tuning in. I'm Lisa Hayden, signing out.
The results are very significant. He said one of those guys is blind and the other one's crazy. The perfect team for examining psychic abilities. That's what I thought. Oh boy.
There's, of course, no way to deal with people who don't want to know.
The storm starts brewing. We get a new director of Office of Research and Development. He could not accept the reality Garland wanted to know. He said he knew that this was not real.
And the guy in the back of the room jumped up and said, I know what this is. Somebody's taking notes to see which of us are gullible. Whoever's taking notes, I want to know. I'm not buying any of this. And he marched out.
A week later, I came back and I said, did you evaluate it? Can you tell me what you thought about it? And he said, no, I didn't evaluate it. And he said, I'm not going to. And I said, what?
We're fundamentalists. There may be something to it, but it may be demonic. We don't have anything to do with this.
You are working with people who are in league with the devil, and you're part of the Antichrist movement. And I picked up the data and walked out.
The deniers who think there is no consciousness beyond our skulls are a powerful force in American society. Are anti-science because they do not respect or accept facts. They are people whose worldview is based on faith of a very particular kind and belief in dogma.
It is about dogma, absolutely. From a religious standpoint, all the way down to, I mean, people that are afraid of it, which is half the people on the planet, is so damaging. I had a senior senator in camera in a meeting stand up. You, sir, are doing the work of the devil, and you will burn in the fires of hell and walk out. That's a senior lawmaker. And then in the same meeting, when we broke the coffee, I had another senior lawmaker hug me and whisper in my ear, "You're doing God's work, son." Now, which one scares you the worst?
I think science research is important because it's an essential part of reality which science hasn't yet taken note of. Furthermore, there's a lot of misconception about people just assuming without any proof what doesn't say. It's just a piece of dogma. And science should not be about dogma.
How many people say they've witnessed things that do not fit within a materialistic paradigm, and then they're told you're deluded because your experience doesn't conform to dogma? This is so fundamentally anti-scientific, it's utterly appalling. So once again, this troubled me because I love science and I respect this tremendous evolution of science for the last 400 years. But when people speaking with the authority of science say, for example, that all experiences can only be functions of the brain, and if you have any experiences that cannot be explained within the materialistic paradigm, you're deluded, then this is dehumanizing, arrogant, pompous, and closed-minded, and those terms should never come in the same paragraph of defining and explaining science. When the evidence just gets to be overwhelming and the groundswell here is growing, I would say that before too long, if you still insist that the mind is nothing more than an emergent property of the brain, it will be widely recognized you're just ignorant.
And the key point about physics is always evolving. Our knowledge of physics is always expanding. And phenomena which people reject as impossible today may not be rejected as impossible tomorrow, because tomorrow we'll have a more extensive theory of physics.
Enter this next wonderful reality and the most controversial of the people. And it shocked me that they found anything to object to. This is a hardcore scientist.
So I'm very happy to be here. My name is Russell Targ. I'm a physicist, and it's my great pleasure to tell you about the remarkable work we did at Stanford Research Institute investigating psychic abilities. I had a small Wikipedia biographical page. It's described that I was born in Chicago, went to Columbia, worked with Hal Puthoff on the pseudoscience called remote viewing. So we had a chance for fish and chips and a cup of tea. We must be in England finally.
That's right.
There was a time when I was ill and I didn't want my biography to be that one-dimensional. So I wrote in that I had been a pioneer in the development of the laser and published many, many papers in lasers. And the Wikipedia masters kept erasing all my laser papers. They said to me, people are not interested in your laser work. We just want to know about your work with the pseudoscience. And I said, well, most of my life has been spent with lasers. And they wouldn't allow me to do that. They banned me from Wikipedia. And finally, I got the help of Brian Josephson. And it was only through Josephson's intercession that I got to bring my biography up to speed.
Do you think that consciousness is built into quantum theory?
This approach is extremely questionable. Unfortunately, I've only got tenure when I've retired, so I don't need to worry anymore. So,
I'm not with you exactly. Anyway, what is taking your picture?
Yes.
You're being interviewed, huh? You were?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what did you do with it? I mean,
it's going to be research.
for what?
Research.
Research. So.
Yes.
So
Okay.
you're
Okay.
able finally to tell the complete truth.
Well, actually, people would probably not contemplate getting rid of a Nobel Prize winner. So I had more or less had freedom in what I could do. Funding was a different matter. I actually told certain people, we'll fund you if you work with anybody else.
Will you tell these fools I'm not crazy? Make them listen before it's too late!
By and large, the critics who've been interested enough in our work to come to our laboratory, we have asked them to take part in experiments and experience remote viewing themselves, which is often very accurate indeed.
One of the biggest skeptics was Undersecretary of Defense Walter LaBerge, who kept hearing leaks about the mad scientists of Menlo Park. So he decided to pay a visit in his Air Force helicopter, landing on the SRI campus lawn and causing quite the dust-up to Hal and Russ's low profile. Although he thought it ridiculous, LaBerge allowed himself to become a subject, despite no prior psychic experience. He correctly and in great detail imagined where his attaché was hiding. He then became one of the team's biggest supporters. along with other senators, congressmen, and generals who dropped in on the lab and got similar results. It was becoming apparent that this was a common ability, but how could they show them? It was all secret. Their first clue to how common intuitive abilities are came when a remote viewer didn't show up for work.
So I had a chance to go to San Jose, Costa Rica, sit at the mountains, and then each day a remote viewer back in the reflect off the Well, on a particular day, I had a chance to do a trip. I got on an airplane, flew out, and landed. It also turned out that on that day, the remote viewer didn't show up. So Russell decided, well, okay, I'll do the remote viewer. So Russell's trying to suppress this data, but it just keeps coming in. He says, okay, well, I guess I'm wrong. I mean, I have no reason to be in an airport. And not only that, I see ocean at the end of the runway. I know the ocean is miles away in San Jose, Costa Rica. Well, in fact, that's exactly where I was, because I'd taken a side trip.
Did you actually take that picture, or is that a standard picture?
Somebody else took the picture. Who, when we had this data, they would out in the picture for the same thing.
Showing that even a scientist can do good remote viewing.
This led to a request from their CIA handlers to bring in someone with absolutely no psychic ability to get a baseline against their best. That didn't work out so well. She was statistically the best results they ever had, even better than the infamous Pat Price.
We were asked to bring in somebody who's willing to be a control person for the program. And I chose to work with Hella Hammett, who's an old friend of the family. She promised me she had never done ESP experiments before, and she would be very happy to be part of our program.
This is a remote viewing experiment with Russ Targ and Hella Hammett. Today is Friday, October 11th, 1974. It's 20 minutes to 4 in the afternoon. Russ Targ and Hella Hammett are in the First Royal Laboratory at SRI. Hal has left SRI. He will select a randomly chosen destination.
Looking up at the structure that must be 3-4 stories high. We made a zigzag going horizontally like a series of mountains on top of each other, and we just shaped side of the subject seems to be open to the sky too. Squares within squares within squares, going downward as it is well. Except that it's some kind of a concrete.
This is just where Hal put up was standing at the time of Hella Hammett's very first remote viewing.
Perhaps the most dangerous secret of all, the one that Russell Targ has worked his whole life to release, is that anybody can be psychic.
And we have a target now that requires a drawing, a description. So I'd like you to quiet your mind and make a little sketch of the surprising images that show up in your awareness. I want to get on paper the shape and the form pertaining to Paul's location. And Paul and Cynthia had a bright green dress, located in some interesting place. Do we have any falling water in the audience?
That's just the waterfall coming down.
Okay, Jesus, the waterfall.
My primary purpose in coming to this conference is to actually to see what I can do to become a world-class remote viewer.
I couldn't believe it, but it's different when you actually do it.
I have no formal training. It's really about sending the message across to people that if you put your mind and heart to something, everything is possible. The world is your oyster. When a full room of people are able to do that, it's not just me, it's not just my imagination, it's all of us.
You know, there's the science part of it. Everybody really wants hardcore data.
I think there's still a question of what it means to be really human, and what it means to be a proper human being, whatever that might mean, and what is the essence of who we are. And I think that if the world actually had an access to that answer, I think it would change everything.
So I'm pretty good. I'm used to it in Las Vegas.
Psychic abilities are real, and you have these abilities.
And now we've got a free ESP tester on the internet.
When we finished, we knew more about our remote viewers and this and about astronauts. There's nothing different about them at all. These are just normal people. Like musical ability, you've got virtuosos at one end of the scale, you've got tone deaf people at the other. It's just in our culture, no one values ESP function.
It's just being human. It's basically what it's all about.
Could it be that psychic ability is much more common than we think? Even internal agents at CIA back in 1975 were secretly doing it, according to original program manager Ken Kress.
Well, it turns out a couple of people around OTS, a lady by the name of Francine and a man by the name of Ed, they decided they wanted to be subjects. And they were CIA employees now. These were not SRI employees. Actually got them involved with a Libyan analyst. I got gibberish, as I remember, from Francine. But, you know, Ed was an engineer, so he comes up like that with very specific stuff. He says, what I see is a Soviet radar that is involved with an air defense system. You know, he goes on and on with all this stuff. And so I package all this up, send it to the Libyan analyst, and he said, you know, we have an agent that we have not vetted who says similar things. And I said, you know, that's news to me.
See, when they were with us, it was not clear whether they had come to see if there's defects in our model or whether they had come to be trained, or both.
Yeah, well, there may have been a slight subterfuge, shall we say, and I might have sent them out there as evaluators, and they may have been motivated as participants.
By 1981, the program had become more and more operational. The government was less and less interested in research. I wanted to be free of all this secrecy.
Which, from a scientific standpoint, was not so good. On the other hand, of course, from the funding standpoint, can't complain.
I brought that to our contracting office, and he said, Russ, you know we're not doing research anymore. And I said, well, we look at this, we think about what we're doing. He said, I'm not paid to think, I'm paid to find out what DIA wants you to do and then see that you do it. I was heartbroken. Al and Ingo were more secretive than ever, and now Ingo was in charge of the Army psychics and had made the program so complicated that only he could teach it. And I got the note from my partner questioning whether I was really making a contribution to the program.
But the most interesting data at SRI pointed to was exactly why Russell wanted to leave. It was a secret so big, he felt that if the general public could truly get it, it might bring enemies together, and it might even change the world.
Russell was kind of the idea man, always kind of pushing the bad scientist. Actually looked the part to some degree.
Not aside to leave, this was in 1995. We had dozens of psychics and lots of laboratories, people out there as consultants and so on. And I ended up spending all my time not doing research, but handling personnel issues and funding issues, writing grants and proposals. I'd get up in the morning and say, well, you know, actually, I could be getting back to research.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
I say no more secrets.
SRI's intelligence work with psychics would go on for another decade, mostly unnoticed, until one of their greatest covert triumphs became their most infamous leak.
Remember Jimmy Carter's telling of finding the downed Russian bomber in the Congo? In 1995, President Carter recounted that during a talk to Emory University, accidentally outing our top secret program to
to CNN.
Students submitted questions on numerous topics, both serious and lighthearted, and as always, President Carter answered them all.
The release of that information contributed to the end of the remote viewing program at SRI.
After Russell and Howell left the program, he continued under Ed May, but eventually confronted the Giggle Factor.
So I would ask the intelligence community to watch what we do for the next few years. And
The CIA had publicly derided the Army-run program, and in the end, they were asked to take it on again.
pretty low priority for the intelligence community, and it's better done on the outside.
Instead, they commissioned a third-party report to, quote, see if it had been valuable to operational intelligence.
And that's our report for tonight.
So, what do all these stories add up to? Well, the two experts commissioned by the CIA report disagree. First, there's psychologist Ray Hyman from the University of Oregon.
My considered judgment, if someone pushed me hard right now, I have to say the odds are 99 to 1 that there's nothing to be made.
I think remote viewing has been demonstrated over the 20 years of work that's been sponsored by the government.
Ed May was very upset at the way the AIR report was done. He was very upset that they did not look at the operational remote viewing and that they did not allow us to talk to the operational remote viewers. I think he was quite disappointed that they narrowed the focus so much so that really it might have been a predetermined conclusion that they wanted to kill the program. I think that anybody who says we haven't proven it yet hasn't really looked at the data. I think, frankly, people don't want to look at the data. They have their worldviews. They don't want these worldviews wrong. I think anybody who looks at it with a real open mind will be convinced.
I became 100% certain that it was real acquisition of information. I became 100% certain that it had potentially real intelligence significance. And I became 100% certain that it never would. What I thought were the issues that would make this a useful tool were both ignored, denied, and in addition later dropped, which is screening of subjects to find the superstars.
You're tested carefully to find your special talents.
Using the tools that I thought we had identified, which were politically not correct then to use, and which are politically impossible to use today.
Well, you're here. You really arrived. You can loosen up a bit now.
You would have a latent ability that maybe a lot of humans have, that you'd be able to tease out of some people with some sort of training program or something, and you'd end up with what ended up.
After we did our report, a few months later, maybe a year later, I received a phone call from somebody who worked higher up in the government, and he wanted to know if this was for real. And I said, I stand by what I wrote in the report. And he said, well, I'm going to see if I can get access to the operational work. He called me back and he said, you got access to it, none of the boxes are there.
Jessica's the president of the American Statistical Society, and she says by the numbers, remote viewing has a higher efficacy than aspirin. What was the CIA trying so hard to hide that they wouldn't allow their best data to be seen? Why did the CIA dislike those regular Joe Army guys so much?
We had the total support of 5 administrations in a row. 5 straight administrations. 5.
It's a very illuminating trip.
Since I was told by the DCI the project was over, that was it. It was over.
Ken was removed as CIA program manager shortly before Pat Price's death, and he assumes that CIA involvement ended with Price.
I heard that they were discussing the Stargate program out of channel. In other words, they were talking about a classified program in an unclassified area. It looks like a security violation. We need to investigate this further. Now, the gamble was ignore it and go away. The suggestion to me was that, okay, let me wonder about it. But if you start complaining about it, you will affirm that we do have a program. They didn't really want to go that route.
Well, Russell's first interview with one of the most spectacular spies from his SRI days was a no-show. Later, the agent called to say they were still doing it. They were afraid to talk about it. Beyond the giggle factor, what was the big deal? What does all of this mean? Could we be missing the big picture here?
And no, that's not right. I told you, two people that I trust, that are, one of whom's in a position to know, says that the program's still going out.
Really? Just how useful is remote viewing? How far would Russell go to tell the world what had become painfully obvious to him? This was something that Russell was inspired to consider after witnessing Ingo predict that Chinese A-bomb test 3 days in advance, and similar work by Stephen Schwartz, and it involved precognition, or seeing the future. The final straw was when he received a package from him, a ghost, an old friend, regarding some water towers that counted years.
I get the impression of a water treatment plant. It looks like water storage tanks. There's a service room down here.
In Pat Price's first series of experiments, he got the shape and dimensions of his swimming pool target within 12 inches. But he also called it a water treatment plant, even drawing water towers, which missed the whole point of the target.
Years after Pat Price's death, I received a historical picture book. It was a gift from the city manager of Palo Alto. That when I opened the picture book in Rinconada Park 75 years ago, it had been a water purification plant, and the two water tanks that Price had indicated indeed were right where he put them, and they would undoubtedly have been the tallest thing in the city of Palo Alto 75 years ago. With Pat's reminder of timeless awareness in hand, I hatched a plan to ditch the spy business and try and wake up the world.
This is the Commodities Exchange in New York City, circa 1983. It was right here Russell Targ's new company, Delphi, decided to tell the world that they were psychic.
We've been predicting silver prices 4 days in advance. Our investors made profits in the middle six figures.
Something I couldn't do while I was a psychic spy.
Predicting the volatile market 9 times in a row even landed them on the cover of the Wall Street Journal.
Right 9 times out of 9. Again, be right in anything in life 9 times out of 9 is unheard of.
But some of the more spectacular successful trades were actually on the short side, where they're making prediction in anticipation of the market coming down, so going against the trend.
But there's still elements that are not understood, so it does not always work. I wouldn't put my life savings behind a remote viewing of the future.
Investor demands and the weight of their own success led to the second round not doing as well. Money dried up, and the skeptics pounced. Russell would have to go even farther to prove his point about ESP. A lot farther.
When they first invited me to come, and their letter to me said, please come to the Soviet Union so we can change propaganda.
I didn't have a big concern about that. I trusted Russell.
He went through the process of asking permission. I assumed that, actually quite confident of that, because had he not done so, he would be in jail.
No, I did not ask any permission to go to Russia. I just went. Of course, they can't reveal secret information, and I declared my independence and left. They said, is there anything you'd like to see while I was here? I said, oh yes, I would like to peek at Brezhnev's office. I would just like to see where he sits. We were once targeted to describe Premier Brezhnev's office in the Kremlin with Hella Hammond.
Who was the control person initially.
And indeed, just as she described it, this odd red leather door held in place by a full street act, a huge desk on the right, window on the left, and a door at the wall behind the desk. And we did not go downstairs in the computer room. When we were talking to the Soviet Academy of Sciences, for example, a physicist got up and said, it seems that if a experienced viewer can focus his or her attention anywhere on the planet, then it's not possible to hide anything anymore. Isn't that true?
The Russian in the audience are quite shocked with that. I can hear the teacups rattling.
The very idea of secrets is not our true nature. Openness is.
40 years ago, I stood in this exact place.
I don't think anyone really expected Russia and American scientists to work together.
In 1987, and I started teaching remote viewing in Russia, and no one in Russia knew about this on that moment.
Yuri is one of the Russian psychologists that Russell met during his travels. Now, he's come out of the cold and brought some friends.
And I decided to go to United States of America to take training from Russell Park. For the first, it was first for Russell Park.
Little did I know when I left SRI that the Russians would become capitalists. Nowadays, Russians are invading.
Having watched the end of the Soviet Union as a cadet at West Point and then fast forwarding to today, I'm a little bit lost.
Now, Russian people very enthusiastic about remote viewing. Да, в России я преподаю дистанционно, и у меня компания, мы делаем прогнозы и предсказания на спортивные события. На сегодняшний день точность предсказаний в районе 75-80%. В России за эту точность очень хорошо платят.
Remote viewing instructor Laurie Williams has brought a group of 20 Russian doctors and engineers to Los Angeles to learn remote viewing for themselves.
So the event she was asking about, I got a phone call from a man that with a strong Russian accent, and he was asking me if I would be willing to teach remote viewing to Russians. And so when he called and said, "Why don't we do something in Los Angeles?" then it just sort of grew from there. We started planning this about a year ago. This class in Los Angeles. We're going to do a quick review. Okay, so the students all received individual targets, so no one's viewing someone else's target. They've all got their own. And we've actually been working on these targets for 4 days. By viewing something repeatedly, it creates a memory path to the target, makes it easier to view.
It's a person. So most likely it's a person. Give it some research. Space. Space.
Humans have been asking these deep questions about the nature of their reality, and they should just using the tools of our society to ask these deep questions in a different way. The ancients did too, and that's what they had available to them. The scientific model has to change continuously to accommodate our knowledge, and if we're learning more, then we have to fit that into our bigger picture of understanding reality.
And here's a sketch. This is a very kinesthetic day today. They're going to be using their hands, creating 3D models of the target using Sculpey clay, modeling clay. They're going to He said that's Neil Armstrong. Is that it? That's all? Okay, you ready for your feedback? Okay, hold on to your seats, folks. This was the Apollo 11 trip to the moon.
The Apollo 11.
Apollo 11 trip to the moon with Neil Armstrong. That's truly what we refer to as a holy shit moment.
Well, fundamentally, we're talking about interpreting what we see. And I think all of us, for centuries, and certainly all the astronauts that have been off the planet with planet Earth, we kind of call it the big picture effect, seeing things in a new perspective, seeing Earth in the perspective of being in the heavens, and that we're just a small part of this huge universe that we're in. I completed my major task and was coming home and was observing the passing of the heavens, the magnificence of all of this, what this triggered in my visioning in the ancient Sanskrit is called samadhi. It means that you see things with your senses the way they are, but you experience them viscerally and internally as a unity and oneness accompanied by ecstasy. We are stardust, and we're all one in that sense. In other words, instead of just serving self, what it tends to help you do is to realize you're a part of a larger reality and to serve that larger reality in a proper way.
So I'm not so sure it was all about collecting intelligence and how well we did. The evolution of consciousness itself is expanding. Consciousness itself can evolve, and I believe that's probably towards what I call empathy.
The main idea from all of our research is that there is no separation, especially no separation in consciousness. More than machinery, we need our humanity.
If the world were to accept this research, we would have to recognize that we are not isolated within our brain. We would have to recognize that we live in the earth, not on the earth. We live embedded in the biosphere, and that all consciousness is interconnected and interrelated.
And that's why we can transmit the power of love and power of healing. Maybe it's very subliminal, but it definitely exists.
I came across this and said, there's a lot of people who think you're nuts. But, hang on, and maybe you're not. We should all be open to our imagination, because once in a while, some of the imaginations will come true. So I think it's time to close up and move on.
So Helen returned to Los Angeles to resume her life as a professional photographer. She died of cancer in 1992.
But not before she uncovered the lost temple of Alexandria, Egypt, with Stephen Schwartz and the Egyptian government. They placed the first stake within 12 inches of where it had been buried for thousands of years, and put the skeptics to rest, at least for that day.
She was given no information beyond the general hilltop location.
Things are going to change because science is changing.
Ingo took the closure of the Army program hard and went into seclusion. We reconnected in later years and had a chance to talk about old times.
I'm going to talk about the future because I think that we're far too much trapped in the past.
very talented cellists who had not read remote view. They went into an expanded state and got impressions. They then took it up to the composers.
Spirit, like,
Two not opposing but interrelated forces. Triplet up and down.
What was the feedback? Well, they didn't know what was in the envelope.
It's very, very close. It's very descriptive of bugs. So playing it, listening to it kind of makes you itch.
Kate Green says he still consults for the CIA.
They're green. Think. And I thought about it for many years. I'll give you the answer. The most precious secrets are hidden in plain sight. That's a stupid expression. But you know what? It happens sometimes to be true.
He told me he collaborates regularly with Hal. But on what? Neither one of them will say.
Oh, yeah. That going through me.
Hal Puthoff resigned from the SRI remote viewing program at the height of its success, but he did go back to remote viewing at least one more time.
Hal repeated my silver forecasting experiment for his child's high school. He raised $25,000 from the stock market for a class field trip to Washington. Then he went back seeking to extract energy from the backfield in his Austin laboratory.
Well, we got our hands in every pie.
Turns out that Kit and Hal really were collaborating. Kit brought Hal into a top-secret Pentagon UFO assessment program, revealed in December 2017 by the New York Times. Oh, and Hal says they've recovered UFO debris. But that's another story.
Brad Price's grave in North Hollywood remains unmarked, and his death remains a mystery.
And as for Russell Targ, he continues to tell his story, showing people just like you and me all around the world that we're all psychic.
At the end of the film, they say no animals were harmed in the making of this film. So I'd like to ask you, is it fair to say that no physics were harmed in the making?
My nephew Nathan is a liar.
In September 1994, over 60 children from this school in the suburbs of Harare, Zimbabwe, witnessed several objects landing and two beings coming out. What was the It felt scary? What was scary about it?
Well, that's so because I've never seen such a person like that
This one. Meditation. Tendon.
What was the feeling when you looked in the eyes? Mhm. And what was scary? Why? What made it scary?
The eyes look evil.
Evil.
As if I wanted to come and take me.
As if it wanted to come and take you. That was the feeling you got? That it wanted you to go with it? Did you feel like you wanted to go with it? Yeah.
We'll try to answer your questions.
That's the high school that led to Chris Wood's death. What the fuck is that? Yeah.
Did you look at it? Did you look at you? Okay, he's a priest.
If you're between 40 and 65 years old and don't have life insurance, then this message is for you. Until the end of January is the cheapest time for you to get life insurance to protect your family. Period. As little as £14 a month for £250,000 to £1 million in coverage. All you have to do right now is take a quick and easy 3-question quiz. Click the button under this video and do it now. See if you qualify for coverage from just £14 a month. The video you want to watch here on YouTube will be right here after you're done. It only takes 30 seconds. We have car insurance in case of car accidents. We have home insurance in case of home accidents. Why aren't you protecting the most important thing to your family, your life? Take our quiz now. Click below to get started.
Now the Spirit speaketh expressly, that in the latter times some shall depart from the faith, giving heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils. Demons have become popular in modern times. You can find them depicted in countless movies, TV shows, books, and video games. They're everywhere. But what are demons? We know they are real because the Bible talks about them with great frequency. In fact, the word devils appears 60 times in the New Testament alone. The Greek word used for devils is daimonion, and it means a demonic being, by extension, a deity, devil, or small g, God. This is where we get the word demon. In order to further understand this, I sat down with a world-renowned spiritual warfare expert and prolific author on the subject of demon possession. His name is Russ Dizdar, and I asked him to break it down for us and explain it in a way that will shed some light onto this very dark subject.
So I look at you, or I look here, or what do we
You can look at the camera. It's up to you. So, can a Christian be demon possessed?
A Christian cannot be demon possessed like a non-Christian. Non-Christian has nothing in them, so they can be body, soul, and spirit completely taken over. The Greek word for, we read in English possession, it's diamonizoi, meaning demonization. So there's levels to it. So I don't believe a real believer, born again, you can have attachments. You can have, of course, obviously they attack and they do other things in your life, but a real believer, we read in Ephesians 4, if you give the devil a foothold, the Greek word topon, meaning you give the enemy a legal right, not possession, but to grab a hold of an area, and then you have a level of demonization that has to be dealt with. Repentance and renunciation brings freedom. So not the exact same way as a non-Christian. For a saved person to manifest, again, that idea that here they are and they've gotten into something, and there's something hanging on right here, so that if you go after that, if it's strong enough, that there can be that kind of reaction. Now, there's another issue here for the SRA people we work with, where their personalities have been split, purposely split for this purpose. So you could have demons on parts of them and see nothing up here. And similarly, on just a regular believer, that if they have grieved the Spirit of God, if they have given into something to give the enemy some kind of right or whatever else to hang on to, there can be a real sense of manifestation from that level. And that's a pretty serious issue. That's why the Spirit of God says, when it deals with the anger side of it, because that can cause that. Not immediately, a person can be angry and no demons, but if you stay in if you get into the flesh, the old sin nature long enough, and you stay there, well, then the enemy has a legal right. You've given him a foothold, so you have a real grabbing a hold. So there can be manifestation. There may not be the same, we see lost folks, and we've dealt with people fully, like Mark 5, where it speaks through their mouth and does everything else. If there's someone that says they're a believer and it goes that far, then we need to question where they're at. Do you really know were you really born again? And we need to find that out then. So just testing it, checking it, and the Lord will lead in that to discern and figure that out. But deal with the demonic stuff. If they're lost, for sure, lead them to the Lord. If it's any kind of how can this be? They just say, Lord, just pray it through and see what they got into. But I would, if they show the same similarities as a total lost person in possession, we need to say, were you really saved? Because in Romans 8, if you have not the Spirit of Christ, you're not his.
What can a Christian do to protect themselves against demonic attacks initiated by other people through the use of black magic rituals and or spells?
I'm glad you asked the question, because all of us have regular warfare as believers. We read in Ephesians 6, our struggle's not against flesh and blood, but against those principalities and powers. And we're commanded.
commanded to put on the armor of God so we can be strong and bold. We also have been given authority. This is important for us to know because you saw in the crowds we just saw here, I asked how many here know your authority? Over 90% did not. Jesus had to give you authority to trample, to tread, to bring a crushing blow to the work of the enemy and to overcome all the power of the enemy. So what's happening now is, and all the SRAs know this, for decades now, they've been summoning spirits, just like the Old Testament, summoning spirits and sending them with assignment, or putting a demon on an object to bring a curse. Voodoo can do this. Santeria can, at a lighter level, but still do this. The Saint of Death in Mexico with millions and millions. The drug lords are doing it. They're doing rituals and doing human sacrifice to fight each other at times too. So when a demon is summoned and sitting against you, and you feel there is a sense that there is a real impact. The awareness is number one, but the authority you have, if you'll respond immediately, is saying that, Lord, just say it first, Lord, what is this? What's going on here? God's in you. What's going on here? But immediately respond, I renounce this. I command this to be broken. You will have no effect on me. I rebuke this. And then I pray for the sender. Lord, engage them. Whoever they are, or like in astral projection too, but whoever they are, if they have summoned and said, we've had some high magicians do stuff, blood rituals, and we've had drawn pictures sent to us of a child sacrifice saying, Russ, we did this for you. And they conjured and sent. So, and the good news is we can preempt a lot of things. Every day when I'm in my prayer time, I want to, Lord, is there anything that's been done, anything set my way? I want to hit it now. Are there covens? Now, what we do is we locate these underground groups and we map them out on paper and we target them. We come against anything and all the demonic stuff they're doing. We pray for exposure. We pray for God to engage the people to bring them to their knees, to save them. So you look at Saul of Tarshish, how God brought him down. I think that can happen too.
Amen. Next question. Can demons jump from person to person, or do they stay in one place?
They can if there's access. Not like the movie Fallen, where just you brush somebody and whatever else. Now, a highly demonized person, notice in the scripture, Jesus hadn't touched them. When it came to healing, he touched and power went out to heal. But when it came to manifesting demons, he just spoke and he didn't touch them because they're going to want to try. Anybody who knows demons and powers, and we had a voodoo really heavy and well, actually, he always comes up a Babalao. So he would want to come with all the demons in him, and he would want to grab to really. He would try at least to try to want to release them on you. So, but just in passing somebody, they just don't have a right. There's always they have to have some kind of right in order to really, grab hold and do something.
Next question. Does the Catholic rite of exorcism work, or is it just focused?
I'm going to be honest when I say, if a real born-again believer who has authority uses some elements in a very obscured way, because there would be some mention of Jesus and authority, but ultimately I would say no, because you can read the demons all day long. They just have more time to mess around. Even like reading scripture, that's a fine thing to do. Jesus never did it. The apostles and those in the book of Acts, they never did it. They all did the same thing. So nothing within, it sounds really religious. It sounds, the things that are being read, it all sounds powerful, but you don't use a ritualistic formula in order to get rid of demons that may have come through a ritual. So Jesus said, I give you authority. The way he did it, he showed how he did it and how he did it all along. He trained the others to do it. When they understood that, they did it the exact same way. Any believer just expressing that authority to expel. Jesus used the words ekbalo, to get out. And the reason I think that the Roman exorcism manual is scary, wrong, in the bad sense, is that it gives demons time to do a lot of things. It just that reciting things. You could read it. You could read a scripture and a demon get mad. I've seen people take a Bible and hit somebody on the head or do something, and it makes them mad. Or they take water, they say it's holy water, and throw it on them. And the demons can play a game and act and display. You got to remember, they are extraordinarily supernaturally smart, wise, and tactical in all they do. We're supposed to take authority and take charge and engage them, and as soon as possible get it all out. So I thoroughly thumbs down on the Roman exorcism manual.
So, next question: are demons scared of Holy Spirit-filled Christians?
They sure are. It's many times, if a real Spirit-filled, strong believer walks into a room, obviously they know that. Like the one demon in Scripture, Jesus I know and Paul I know, but who are you? Because they didn't have the Spirit of God, so they know us. So, and I think usually they might even feel us come or sense us before we even sense them. But let's remember, greater is the Holy Spirit in us than any demon. So we should have great perception too. But when we do walk in a room, yeah, I believe out of all my experience, let alone Scripture, they know a real Spirit-filled believer, and they'll want to try to stay down or get the person to leave the room. They want to get out of there. We got to remember in James, they shudder, they tremble even at the name Jesus. So a real believer that knows who they are and know what they're doing, they walk into a room. It's the other way around. Even though they want to play the game of scare you and do whatever, all that kind of stuff, the authority we've been given is so decimating to them. That's why they go out screaming at times. They scream and screech going out at times because that authority is so overwhelming.
All right, next question. Can a person be demon possessed and not?
When I came across the Monzo business account, I was game changing. The thing that was appealing to me was everything is super clear. There's no hidden jargon or words you don't understand. It feels more human. It was like I saw a bit of me in Monzo.
I believe that they could be demon possessed and think it's something else. New Age. I've got a spirit, I got a spirit guy. I've got we had one lady come in. I have a family ancestral animal spirit, and this is a good thing for our family. So we said, let's test it. The pastor that was in our offices, just at the doorway, he looked and said, in the name, as soon as he began to pray, and he said, in the name of Jesus, she called it a bear spirit. This demon manifested and just was ready to attack him and growl. He rebuked it, cast it out of her. She went to the ground. She began to cry. She said, I had no idea. I didn't know what it was. We got to remember, Satan can masquerade. Remember that scripture? He can masquerade. It's the word meta schizmazo. He can morph his presence tactically for deception without changing his nature. So he can get into, that's why people believe that aliens are, this or ancient, the Great White Brotherhood, things like that. These ancient spirits, their power to masquerade and play and tactically do whatever they need to get the allowability to get in. So I do think some people have stuff. We've seen this. They have stuff. They know something's there. They're not. Maybe they open a door somewhere, whatever. But once somebody comes to express authority, and all of a sudden, full-blown manifestation occurs, they're like, I had no idea. I thought it was just a, helper spirit guide. I just thought it was an enhancement, and I have no idea the depth of it. And so it can be they don't know the full depth of it until some engagement occurs.
Is it possible to cast the demon out of yourself through fasting and prayer?
It is. I think, and again, as a believer, when you get saved, now there might be people, and when I say possession, I mean, if a demon, like Mark 5, that guy couldn't get saved on his own. That guy couldn't do anything on his own because he was so controlled. So ultimately, that level of possession, you need an outsider to help them and then lead them to Jesus. And look what happened in his life. So, but when a believer does have some kind of attachment, something or whatever else, and they realize whatever they were deeply into something, and then they come to the Lord, but yet something they didn't close the door on. I believe in what some people call auto deliverance, to where, if you know your authority, I even believe that if you all of a sudden the believers realize that something's here, and it should be because I'm a believer now. Jesus delivered me. Just going to the Lord, that can have an heat in that, because it's not, He wants everything cleared out anyway. So you can have a deliverance that way, or if you're a believer, say, well, I know my authority, and but know the legal right, know the reason why it's there, so that you can renounce that doorway or that practice and say, never again. You have no rights here.
Are some people more susceptible to demonic attacks than others?
Yeah, say, well, and again, excuse me, it would come down to number one, if you're lost. Ephesians chapter 2, Satan is the prince of the power of the air, the spirit who now works in those who are disobedient. So when you're lost, he has rights to you anyway. Not just to jump in and be full possession, you need more, even more access, but he has rights overall. You're lost, you have no defense. So the issue is, if you've been raised in a family of psychics or voodoo practitioners, so even if you're raised in some stuff, or if you open the doors, you don't know, you're just going to go out and do, smoke up and do acid. So you get into that world, those kind of doorways can open little by little by little. So I think some are more vulnerable depending on what's around them. If their moms or dads were witches or Satanists things, and they've never repented, and so the spirits want to come down to the next generation. So even that is an extra pressure when a son or daughter, they didn't do anything, but because the mom and dad opened the doors, they want to come down that family line and go after. So a son or daughter, or even a grandchild, may have more undue pressure.
So are generational curses real in your opinion?
Yeah, I believe they're real, and they're called familiar spirits in the Old Testament, meaning they're familiar in the family line or familiar with an area. So if my grandfather was a Satanist and he was really a practitioner, first, when he died, he would want to do a ritual to hand it all down, all those powers down, to somehow. But if he doesn't, and the spirits come out, or even the spirits are on him, they're always looking for more access. And they want, like in the Old Testament, they want the whole tribe. They not only want the grandpa or the dad, they want the family, then they want the tribe. That's why the whole tribes were infested. They want everything. So they're going to go after, if a dad or mom or grandmother or grandfather open those big doors, it gives that spirit even, because, well, either way, they're just going to come after to bring influence. Doesn't mean a grandson or granddaughter is going to be automatically influenced or taken over, or they're going to become a Satanist or a witch. But there's undue influence because of moms and dads or anybody else. You could be in a dormitory at college, and you got a guy's, deeply into something, voodoo and practicing spirits, whatever, and you're in the same room. You're going to have problems. You could be vulnerable to attack, vulnerable to influence, to open a gateway to let them in. So, in that sense, yeah, you can be more vulnerable.
Why do they always go after the children in SRA and other occult practices over adults, for instance?
Okay. Well, see, first of all, it's normal. With the Old Testament, Moloch and the Baals, they wanted the children. Explained to me by Satanists because it's a higher level of blasphemy to God, against God. It's and for some reason the demons love bringing that kind of harm. We look at a child and automatically we're going to protect him, save them, guard them, whatever it takes. They look at a child, they'd eat it alive, they destroy it, they torture it. You got to remember that's their nature. And so if they could show more of their nature to a defenseless child, they love that. That's why some rituals are called demon revels or satanic revels. The younger the child, here's exactly what dark undergrounders have said to me: the younger, the better. And we never kill them right away. We prolong the torture. Why? Because we have to raise the energies, the terror, the fear, and then little by little letting some blood out, because blood is and all that torment is like, think in terms of rats and garbage. Smelly garbage draws the rats. A ritual with all that torture, with all that pain, ultimately prescribed by the demons in the first place, it draws them. And once they begin to open the bloodgate, that's what they attach to. in the context ritual, then when a child or a human is killed, that's when the demons are released to the practitioners. So it's all about their unsatiable hatred of God. Anything they can do to harm humanity, harm the innocents, that's an attack on God in a sense. There's no question. In their nature, they don't shed a tear. They don't have any mercy. So they'll harm, and they love that as part of the entrance to come into the side.
There can be no question as to the reality of demons and their unrelenting schemes which threaten us daily. The Apostle Paul tells us exactly what we need to do in order to keep these demons at bay. The whole armor of God. Finally, be strong in the Lord and in the strength of his might. Put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the schemes of the devil. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers over this present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in heavenly places. Therefore, take up the whole armor of God, that you may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all, to stand firm. Stand therefore, having fastened on the belt of truth, and having put on the breastplate of righteousness, as shoes for your feet, having put on the readiness given by the gospel of peace. In all circumstances, take up the shield of faith, with which you can extinguish all the flaming darts of the evil one. And take the helmet of salvation and the sword of Spirit, which is the word of God, praying at all times in the Spirit, with all prayer and supplication. To that end, keep alert with perseverance, making supplication for all the saints. Ephesians 6:10 through 18. And this is where we leave it today. Thank you all for watching. God bless you all.
Well, our website is shatterthedarkness.net, shatterthedarkness.net. And on that website, it leads to all the stuff we have, hundreds and hundreds of hours of training, all of the audios, everything, all the courses are free. And you can get trained up, get educated, learn things. And so shatterthedarkness.net.
Hello, this is Richard Bruce, and this is my report on alien abduction. This is an initial report about alien abduction for which I looked at a number of researchers' videos on YouTube and read several books, focusing on two books in particular, Barbara Lamb's Meet the Hybrids and Dr. David Jacobs' The Threat. The major names in alien abduction research I looked at include Barbara Lamb, Dr. David Jacobs, Dr. Carla Turner, Bud Hopkins, John Mack, Jacques Vallée, Mary Wadwell, and Joseph Jordan. In addition to listening to reports and reading books from these researchers, I also listened to or read a number of individual abductee witnesses. I will say in advance that trust is a key element in this field, as well as logic and clarity. And of the researchers I looked at, I found the most trustworthy to be Dr. David Jacobs, Bud Hopkins, and Dr. Carla Turner. I base this preferred trust on a sense of expectation of the skeptical view, essentially addressing that issue of trust as a standard in their presentations, because they know that with little or no empirical evidence and known deception taking place, they feel an appropriate sense of obligation to demonstrate trustworthiness with error checking and cohesive arguments. Also, I must say, there is a certain indefinable humanity I see and hear in these researchers, which sets them apart from others I listened to or read. The most cursory look at the abduction phenomenon
defines it in the very word abduction, meaning people are taken against their will, with the trademark features of lost time and memory, offers a time-verified cause of suspicion of the abductors and their motivation. Any researcher or abductee, therefore, not addressing this suspicion of ill intent is also less believable, especially while touting the positive view, such as the aliens are here to help us. Jacques Vallée is an example of someone with a view that seems to lack common sense altogether. Or to be fair, I simply do not understand the complexities of his theory on the alien abduction phenomena. Listening to him, it appears his view is that the phenomena is real, but that it may be the creation of the collective human consciousness and therefore could manifest in various ways depending on the individual. In my opinion, the man is hopelessly confused. I listened to a debate between Bud Hopkins and John Mack, and what stood out for me is that Bud Hopkins at one point asked John why he does not seem to think there is anything negative about the abductions, to which he replied it felt it was more complex than just a negative situation, as many people report good experiences and healing. As John talked, however, I did not hear a reply to the question or sense of a clear logic in his speech. It was kind of fuzzy, you might say, not making sense or a clear point. A critic of this report will likely come in part that I am swayed in my opinion due to my religious persuasion, for which I would reply, I am indeed persuaded that the King James Bible is God's inerrant word, and further I make this report with the thought of how my Christian God would want me to make it. I would point out that those in the UFO community who use the term belief system in the context of religious illogic, I would point out that every person's view, which cannot be absolutely verified, is in fact a belief system. And everyone who ever made a report not only has an opinion, but used that opinion for decision-making on what went into it, regardless of claims of total objectivity. If you feel that only a science and provable fact-based view can make an accurate report, then I ask if you can prove the origins of the universe. If not, then I say my opinion is as good as yours. In a situation where most of the key facts are unknown and entirely improvable, then the parameters of trust regarding a report fall upon the rationality of analysis and what information is available. In regard to rationality from a religious perspective, allow me to offer perhaps a less common Christian view, which is that evolution, in my opinion, is itself a reasonable concept, just not that it applies to this universe, but as an ultimate conclusion, being more likely than a God or other intelligent life just somehow always existing, complete with language and science, never having some smaller beginning. Furthermore, natural selection and adaptation are easily seen, and therefore it is clear that living organisms change over time, regardless of the amount of time or how those changes occur. In summary, I believe God must have ultimately evolved from some form of jump from non-living material to something living at some point. But what we are experiencing now is a creation of a being that came into its current capabilities somehow, out calling himself God. Further, I would point out that in the case of every known alien type, i.e. reptilian, gray, insectoid, canine, feline, and others, they believe there is a creator of the universe. And that creator still exists, though of course they do not agree on the details. Are Earth atheists a minority in the universe? Therefore, I say my Christian faith does not put me at a disadvantage of credibility as a researcher, while acknowledging the problem of closed-mindedness in any belief system, including one that is apparently an exception in the universe, atheism. So with that, let's take a look at two polar extreme views of the alien abduction phenomena: Barbara Lamb's Meet the Hybrids and Dr. David Jacobs' The Threat. Meet the hybrids. Miguel Mendoza and Barbara Lamb have not come to the evil ET conclusion. They, like the growing majority of researchers, see the ETs in a more positive light. Their conclusion has come from extensive evidence they have gathered from working with experiencers and hybrids. It has led them to the conclusion that the beings we are dealing with are extremely benevolent, altruistic, and here to serve and upgrade humanity to help usher the world into higher consciousness and ascension. Starting with the interview of these hybrids, we're going to look at Julia Cuita. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. Anyway, Juju, as she calls her name for short, describes that she is a human reptilian hybrid, the only representative here on Earth in human form, and she is of a race of reptilians called the Fajan, F-A-J-A-N. Her home planet being called Thaqui, F-A-Q-U-I, in the Andromeda Galaxy. Juju realized her status through certain mind flashes or images and experiences, and that she was injected with reptilian DNA around the age of 5 or 6, so that she would be a hybrid of her species. She says she volunteered for the mission due to a cosmic cry for help that went out from the Earth, or Gaia as she is known, and her primary mission is to help the animals and other ETs already here raise the consciousness or vibration of Earth, make the transition to the 5th vibration or density. According to Juju, 5th dimension is a lighter, less dense reality where things are more malleable, such as choosing their own form. She says, we choose our form as we are dimension beings, and we've all agreed to be reptilian. She also says in an interview with Mark Gray that being in the 5th dimension automatically means being in a more loving, peaceful state. She describes her shapeshifting like this, quote, sometimes people will glimpse my crest or see my eyes change. So it's like it's always there, but superimposed on a different level of vibration. A couple of people have seen me shift full body, end quote. Here she describes interesting detail about coming to Earth and her connection to other ET races. Quote, we're in what's called the Star Alliance with many species. We had to establish our intent before incarnating. And there's a lot of detail that goes into that, like which alliance you're going to connect with once you're here. Who is going to protect you, look out for you, teach you, help you with your information, heal you. We have no part of the Ashtar Command, no family bond with them. We had to work with the Pleiadians to make this body, so we all work together. But I'm closer to the insectoid species, the mantis and the greys. I'm really attracted to them, and they've helped me so much. And I know I have hybrid children with them. So there are some unanswered questions like, who is the Star Alliance and why did they have to establish their intent with them before incarnating on Earth? What is their purpose with Earth? That they regulate who comes here and why. This is important because it involves security while on Earth, and various ET races are working together in whatever Ashtar Command is. Notice I saw a report a Christian made that Ashtar is actually the name of a evil false god, which is both a god and goddess. It's a dual sex type being, as you'll see. And here's a scripture relating to it, Joshua 9:10. And all that he did to the 2 kings of the Amorites that were beyond Jordan, to Sihon, king of Heshbon, and to Og, king of Bashan, which was at Ashtaroth, and that's spelled A-S-H-T-A-R-O-T-H in the Authorized King James Bible, and then also Joshua 12:4, and the coast of Og, king of Bashan, which was of the remnant of the giants that dwelt at Ashtaroth and at Edrei. So Wikipedia has it listed as the name Astaroth was ultimately derived from that of the 2nd millennium BC Phoenician goddess Astarte, an equivalent of the Babylonian Ishtar, and the earlier Sumerian Inanna. She is mentioned in the Hebrew Bible in forms Ashtoreth, singular, and Ashtaroth, plural, in reference to multiple statues of her. This latter form was directly transliterated by the early Greek and Latin versions of the Bible, where it was less apparent that it has been a plural feminine in Hebrew. The Christian report was about how aliens are used as part of the Great Deception. And if you trace the names such as Ashtar Command to Astaroth, what you find is that these are really demons. This is in stark contrast to the benevolent purposes described by Juju of her race working with Ashtar Command, or rather not working with it, but she mentions it. Is this unrelated, or are they really in fact demons, which perhaps, while genuinely being extraterrestrial or interdimensional, the hybrids themselves are not aware of what they really are? Juju describes being taught how to fly a ship, and says some interesting things about Earth's attitude towards ETs. Quote, Truman had a shoot them down policy, and they know that, so they have shields up. There could be a lot up there that are cloaked, and I'm always asking them to show themselves, and sometimes they'll guide you to look at a star or give you, but it's a risk as our government has devastating weapons, end quote. Why would the President of the United States have a shoot-down policy of alien craft? Think about that. Why would he make an order to shoot them down? He wouldn't tell the public about it. This is Truman. But he has an order for our military to shoot them down. Did he know something about them that we don't, but they won't tell the public? I've known from the Aztec crash and related sources that the American government has the technology that can bring down alien ships, and this devastating weapon seems to confirm that. Juju said, quote, Mother Earth called us, told us she was ready to evolve, to move to a higher frequency, and she needs help to do that. I was in my ship when she put out her 911 call. It was very powerful and emotionally overwhelming. It was like a quantum beam of energy she shot out into the universe, end quote. So here she is describing why she chose to incarnate on Earth. This is described in more detail here. Quote, our whole intention of living is based on good for all, not just one group. We consider the whole of Andromeda Galaxy to be part of our home. Everything we decide for the good of as many beings as we can. So they allowed me, which is such an honor, and I don't know why I was chosen, to bring my fifth dimensional frequency to Earth, to be part of the mission. My soul comes from a fifth dimension place, carries that energy, and being a hybrid allows me to carry more of that frequency. Being a hybrid doesn't make us more special. Whether you're a hybrid or not just depends on your mission. We understood that a lot of other ETs were coming here to help Mother Earth carry that high vibration, end quote. So here we see what looks like a positive agenda, and we don't know. Maybe there really are ETs of a benevolent sort who are trying to help the Earth. Notice in the case of Juju, however, it is the planet and the animals first as a priority, and humans behind those two. Quote, I came here not specifically for humanity, but for Mother Earth and the animals. Humankind was a third priority, end quote. Juju describes more about her shape-shifting here. At nighttime, I shift into my hybrid state to send data back. You don't use a Commodore 64 for today's purposes. You use the right equipment. You need a 5D form to send the information back. So I shift into that form. My ex saw me shift one night, full body, and she said the only reason she didn't run screaming was because she could see my characteristics and realized it was me, end quote. So she saw Juju but in her reptilian form, but she recognized her features in that reptilian form, which is why she didn't run off screaming. Notice from this quote, Juju relates more to ETs than to humans. Quote, "It's not my mission to teach humanity, but I offer who I am to the world, and I'm open to people if they want to know. But that's as far as I go. It's kind of sad as I'm the only one from my planet. It's a lonely existence, being separate from my home planet all my life. But there are many ETs here from all over, and I feel like they're my extended family. I tend to have more of an ET perspective than a human perspective. I always think of how the ET feels. I can see things more easily through the ET perspective." Okay, here's some more about the higher vibration aspect of their purpose here on Earth. Quote, "To intervene or manipulate is more of a lower vibration. The way I've been taught and see things is that we bring an essence in that is of a higher vibration. Use or expand consciousness and apply loving, spiritual, grateful energies and affect the overall energy of the planet," end quote. Quote, "My understanding is that Mother Earth herself wishes to move forward and evolve, and so does the human soul group, which wants to shift collectively into the fifth dimensional existence," end quote. This matches what Alex Collier and others say about the human collective. Basically, that Earth is going through the process of ascension into the fifth density, or higher and better state, and some will be ready to evolve, but some not, with various consequences being staying here in the miserable suffering state of the third density to being carted off to another world that is still in the third density. So you have one of two choices. Either the people who don't ascend to the fifth dimension or fifth density will either stay here in a Earth that stays in its third density, and then there'll be another Earth, I guess, that splits off into the fifth dimension situation, or the whole Earth will ascend into the fifth dimension, and those that are not ready to ascend will be carted off to another planet that is still in third density. So they'll be taken off and put into another planet or a whole other cycle of experiencing third density. So it boils down to spiritual cosmic experience, which eventually leads you into ascension. So the whole thing is a process of ascension. I do not know, of course, but I love this concept designed to deceive, such as what Donald Marshall describes. Some abductees to the cloning center are told so they do not attempt to find the underground facility. One thought I had is that there may actually be a dimensional shift made available to many souls, quote, evolved to this, but the true children of God will remain on earth or its current state with the Lord, as described in the millennial reign of Christ. Juju says, quote, "The higher your vibrational frequency becomes, the closer you get to the highest universal truth. But our personal truths are different, and we must respect that. I see universal truth as the highest, most pure knowledge of source energy, the creator of all that is. Each evolutionary step a soul takes toward source energy as an increase in one's vibration opens us to this pure truth. We exist here in physical third dimension form, which grants us very little access to pure truth compared to those of higher dimensions, so each of us has our own," end quote. Here we see one vibration, the ascension with truth itself, but then a hint at God, seemingly called here, quote, "source energy, the creator of all that is," end quote. Is it accurate to say that our current form, called here third dimensional form, grants us very little access to pure truth compared with higher dimensions? If, as is written, God's dwelling place will be among men in the earth, can we say this reality grants us very little access to pure truth? Revelation 21:3. "And I heard a great voice out of heaven saying, Behold, the tabernacle of God is with men, and he will dwell with them, and they shall be his people, and God himself shall be with them, and be their God." Psalm 45:16. "Instead of thy father shall be thy children, whom thou mayest make princes in all the earth. Notice the Psalm 45:16 is speaking to the daughter of Jerusalem and telling her that her children she may make princes in the earth, which means at least the millennial reign of Christ. So that's talking about how God's people are going to be in the earth. Now, also, another thing to consider is that nowhere in Scripture have I found anyway, and let me know if you know about something, that really describes a shift in the frequency or dimension of Earth, or anything about the fifth dimension, or anything that looks like it relates to the fifth dimension. Juju says, quote, "The reason so many ETs are here is to bring as much light and higher frequency to this planet as possible, because Earth wants to evolve. And with all this shadowy government stuff going on, with negativity, greed, power and control, creating hierarchies, that's very unevolved, greedy thinking," end quote. Juju says, "It's like proof. The need for proof of something is low vibration. When you become more evolved, move to a higher spiritual vibration, you don't need proof. Your eyes open to how things really are, and you get proof, but that's when you don't need it. You just know. So going from 3D thinking to 5D thinking doesn't just happen with a snap. It's personal growth," end quote. Okay, so I kind of understand what she's saying, and it might even be true. But if you really look at that, what it's saying is the need for proof is low vibration. It's like if you want verification in a situation where we don't have open contact, we don't have any sure way to know the truth, and then saying the need for proof is low vibration, it just seems like even if an aspect of that is true, like her perspective was true about it, it would lack a sensitivity to the reader or people who are looking at this subject and saying, what? The need for proof is low vibration, when they themselves acknowledge that there are liars and all kinds of deceptions and things going on. So to say that the need for proof is low vibration, it's almost like, you can see it's like a cover-up. It almost sounds like a deformation of that which establishes the truth, as though it is unpopular or uncool for someone to ask for proof. I can imagine Juju would not be interested in shape-shifting for people wanting some proof, as she is a hybrid, but on the other hand, I don't think it's an unreasonable request for select researchers and people as a whole. Personally, I can believe she is a shape-shifting hybrid, and in this case, I believe her story and many others I have heard. But why, if she really wants to help the world, which includes humanity, a third but still priority she mentions, would she not want to help everybody realize we are not alone, which she herself even states you cannot say government and disclosure in the same sentence. She says, quote, "With all these star seeds and hybrids here, raising the vibration, it makes that transition a lot easier. It's like a huge ladder that fell down from the sky and says, come on, this is available. And if it doesn't scare you, we'll help you move up the ladder," end quote. Juju goes on to say, if someone is opposing, they won't move to the fifth dimension, and that's okay. It's not a judgment. It just means that their soul has not yet learned what it wants to learn. We do that in a loving way, and we support that. We don't expect everybody to be in the fifth dimension. That's not loving. We want to help those who want to go, those who are ready. It's offering that ability to move on, and that's all it is. We have our hand extended to you. If you're ready to take it, if you're not, we all support you back, end quote. Now this is interesting. Notice Juju says opposing, as though those not interested in taking the easy offer to join them in the ascension are enemies. Contrast that she could have said not interested or not believing, but she uses the word opposing. She follows that with saying they accept those not wanting to evolve to the fifth dimension, saying not accepting them would be unloving. and going on to say, we support you in that if you don't want to ascend. Now, maybe I'm being overly suspicious, as I'm sure she and Starseeds would say I am. But again, it starts to sound more subtly like you're with us or you're against us, followed with words like loving and we support you to make it sound like benevolence. What is coming, one might ask, as a decision, event, or offering, wherein humans not taking the offering are, quote, opposing. Juju says in response to the alien takeover theory, which is one of the questions that they asked the 8 hybrids that are interviewed in this book, Meet the Hybrids, she says, quote, if David Jacobs is using the word threat, I think it's a matter of perception. The words you choose show where you are at with something. The hybridization program is definitely happening, but why do we have to see it as a threat rather than more of a profound happening that includes humanity helping another species? I agree, a positive attitude can change things for the better, and why be doom and gloom when you can look on the bright side? But in this case, doing even just basic homework on the abduction phenomena denies a rational ignoring of why someone would ask a negative question about it. I'll go more into detail with Dr. David Jacobs' story, but both he and the late Dr. Carla Turner documented literally thousands of cases involving every extreme negative experience one could imagine. And besides them, there are many abduction witnesses who report many things from memory erasure, painful and scarring medical procedures, forced breeding, including rape and miscarriage, torture and death, and full life ruination. Therefore, to say what Juju says here is either denial, deception, or very odd lack of information. Maybe she was programmed to avoid any information which sheds truthful light on the alien abduction phenomena as a whole, or for some reason did not think much about Carla Turner and what she said and wrote in her case study experiences. Juju here also says that she was not paid for Dr. David Jacobs' book, saying, quote, and a lot of us hybrids have been asked to be like donors, to have hybrid children with ETs, to extend the species' existence. To me, that's a very loving spiritual experience, not a threat. It just depends on how you want to see it, I guess. I respect everyone's view, but I certainly won't support his book by buying it, end quote. So that's Juju on Dr. David Jacobs. In contrast, a reasonable answer to the takeover question might be, I understand a lot of people have had negative experiences. Maybe these are regressive ETs or those with service to self mentality. But my ET contacts have never treated me that way, and no other hybrids I have talked to have that experience. So I don't know where all these people reporting negative things are coming from. Instead, there seems to be a complete denial anything negative is going on, similar to what Dr. Stephen Greer repeatedly and inexplicably says, that there is no evidence that ETs are anything but benevolent. The witnesses talking about negative things and their abductions vastly outnumber those who say their impression of the ETs is mostly or totally positive. If you don't believe this, just go on YouTube and type in alien abduction in the search field and have a look for yourself. Juju said, quote, I'm glad you've had positive experiences with reptilians, Barbara. I've tried to explain that to people, but I've had to be really careful what I say because it can make me a target. Because too many people think all reptilian ETs are bad. The one you met, who was an ambassador to Earth, that would be really challenging. I would never want that job, end quote. So here she's describing a reptilian ambassador to Earth, okay? Well, have you seen him? Have you seen a reptilian ambassador? Have you heard a quote from a reptilian ambassador? Who is this reptilian ambassador to? The elite who aren't telling us there are not any aliens from outer space that they are already interacting with? Is that who the ambassador is to? But he's with them and keeping all the rest of us taxpayers from knowing what our own government is doing with these aliens? I would like to announce here that if any reptilian or ambassador of any kind would like to improve their image, they are welcome to contact me, and I will be happy to make a full report to the Christian world. But for this, you will have to put up with my low vibration request for proof on my video camera. Juju says again, quote, but some takeover agenda may be in place, some evidence that may support that, but it's not going to happen for me as I'm not choosing that. For a lot of people, that may come true because they feel strongly about it. They will self-manifest it because of that thought process and that energy, end quote. Okay, so I've heard this rhetoric in various forms before, and I think there is some truth to the common sense idea that what you focus on will manifest. But I think this is, for the most part, a bogus and illogical point of view. Therefore, all the people who were abducted, or all the people that have and will be harmed by the abduction hybridization program because they chose it and it self-manifested, it just doesn't add up. Did Dr. Carla Turner self-manifest her abductions? And then the threat on her life that if she did not keep quiet about the abduction phenomena, then her death from fast-acting breast cancer in less than 1 year, stopping her work. I think it is safe to conclude that saying people self-manifest or choose what is happening to them in forced abductions, or they drew this to them by their own thought process or focus, is wrong and a diversion from the real culprits, the aliens. Juju says, quote, you have to understand that you share energy with every living thing on this planet, people, plants, and animals. So if you understand that connection and what energy does, it really hurts when you're dealing with humans who act with rejection or prejudice or fear. That's damaging, and so I tend to pull my energy back and don't connect so it doesn't hurt, end quote. So I found this recurring message in the abductee or hybrid witnesses in the Barbara Lamb book. And I said, I found this recurring theme in contactees, almost like a cookie cutter stamped out message each of them said, which is that if people are fearful or judgmental, they will never open up or talk to them, nor will other ETs make contact with them. It's a catch-22, because if people who even casually research alien abduction on YouTube have every good reason to be fearful and judgmental, they will be denied ever getting to know any positive aliens so that they can develop trust and a positive feeling about them. It's like, if you're not an insider or some kind of blissfully ignorant person who has no sense of danger or discerning in what is clearly a dangerous world, you're just not going to be part of the in-crowd, evolved, higher vibration people who get to hang out with aliens. Juju says, quote, I'm more comfortable at UFO conferences because the energy is very ET. You get all this awakened energy, and you can sense a lot of people are awakening or have yet to be activated, but you can feel it all there. At the same time, you do get people who want to be more open-minded, but are actually more prejudiced. Some come with the intention of seeing the weirdos, or some come looking for proof. There's that proof again. And the speaker better show me proof, and they demand extraordinary evidence. When I was at my booth selling books with Cynthia, some would come to me and demand proof. And I was shocked because my thinking is not there. My energy comes down. I vibrate lower to try to get where they're at, and I don't like that, end quote. So that's Juju again explaining about the problem of judgmentality, being judgmental, of wanting proof. And again, it's, it's a two-sided sword, because on the one hand you want to have verification, but on the other hand you don't want to be blasted with, prove every time, can you prove it? But I would find another way of saying that, because I think it's a reasonable request for proof, and I don't hear the acknowledgement of that need in these statements. So here again is vilification or degradation of those who might ask for proof. Where I would ask is the loving understanding of people who have doubts or have never seen or experienced anything like she has? Is there any sense that our society is being lied to by our own government, and there is a clear effort, like the Men in Black, to silence or snuff out anyone getting too close to the truth about UFOs? Is there any sense that humans in general tend to confabulate, go crazy, or make big mistakes, especially around paranormal subjects? And especially if you are motivated by the need for money and selling books on questionable topics, is someone asking for proof or evidence of some kind really a low vibration scum of some kind? It really does start to seem like a fraud situation, like one of those live crime busting shows I saw on television, that the person clearly proven criminal in their actions seems bewildered. They are being accused and proceed to give the accusers a convincing lecture on morality. It is a pathological denial of their own behavior and subconscious defense mechanisms to vilify anyone challenging them on those very fraudulent points. I'm not saying I disbelieve Juju's basic facts as she tells them, and she indeed is a reptilian hybrid, as she says, and from the planet, she says. But with this kind of denial rhetoric, saying the abduction phenomena is really only positive, and people saying otherwise are negative, lower vibration people that brought it on themselves, and anyone asking for tangible evidence of highly questionable material are fear-based people that will not join the evolved souls in the ascension to the fifth dimension. One has to wonder what else might be true about her alien family or existence. Don't you think it's a reasonable question in a world Juju herself says, and I quote her, that what is so prevalent on Earth, all these different feelings and intentions and deceit, unquote. If deceit is prevalent, why is it low vibration to ask for evidence in a highly questionable circumstance? If deceit is prevalent, why not video herself shapeshifting and upload it to YouTube to put any questions to rest? Juju is then asked to give her concept of God, for which I find the answer quite similar to New Age rhetoric, saying God is not a person, but, quote, source energy, and we are all a piece of that energy, and certainly nothing like the Christian Bible describes. Juju says, quote, what about the Andromeda Galaxy where I'm from? The Native Americans believe we go back to the center of the galaxy, called Hanab-Ku, and that human soul group reincarnates from the Milky Way cycle as a human soul group on Earth. For us star seeds, do we go back to the center of our galaxy? It might be a whole different God. I certainly don't feel part of the human soul group, end quote. Well, it's hard to verify any such information, of course, but notice a few things about the wording. Notice the clear delineation, again, from humans, clearly identifying herself with non-humans as a separate group. Notice she says, quote, us starseeds, end quote, and, quote, I certainly don't feel part of the human soul group, end quote. I would say, indeed, these souls may not be subject to the once die and then the judgment, going to heaven or hell when they die, because what? It says, man is given once to die, not beast. So if she is part beast, she may be categorized as what God calls beasts, or beasts of the field. By the way, the quote, beasts of the field is found 29 times in the Old Testament, and I believe it is a reference to these humanoid beast types, intelligent, high-tech wielding sentient beings, but with animal heads and features like bird heads, dog heads, alligator heads, and so forth. And this is what God is calling beasts. And they may or may not be, I have not found a connection, other than the fact that Satan was a beast. Satan was an angel turned a beast that connects these beasts as all having been fallen angels. Maybe they were on these planets, and then the fallen angels became them later, but they're not the same thing. So there may be beasts that were previously angels, or beasts that were just evolved on their worlds, and were created on their worlds, and then over time became what they are now. The scriptural quote in regards to the die once and then the judgment is Hebrews 9:26. For then must he often have suffered since the foundation of the world, talking about Jesus, But now once at the end of the world hath he appeared to put away sin by the sacrifice of himself. And it is appointed unto men once to die, but after this, the judgment. I had a chance to ask Barbara Lamb herself, because that she regressed many people's past lives, if any of them described an experience of heaven or hell. She answered me clearly no, and explained what appears to be a situation of reincarnation to learn lessons, and a review process whereby the soul itself agrees what it has to learn next and what is best for their next reincarnation. You might be surprised to hear, I think something like that may actually be happening. Perhaps because, as Juju puts it, they are not part of the human soul group, and therefore the rule of judgment does not apply to them. Reincarnation is scriptural, as the 12 foundations of the New Jerusalem being named after the 12 apostles of the Lamb means they live again, even with their same names, which means that after judgment, following death, souls are born again, and this many times, for the same purposes of learning. Revelation 21:14. And the wall of the city had 12 foundations, and in them the names of the 12 apostles of the Lamb. Therefore, I would say Christians who will obtain wisdom and will not take the simple view might realize such testimony of souls learning from various past lives is something to consider about our reality and what all God is doing here. Next, I take a look at Barbara's interview with Charmaine D. Rosario Such, and Barbara asks her, what is your take on the takeover thesis? Charmaine answers, I don't believe in dwelling on the negative side, as negative energy is created by doing so. Instead, we could create positivity with it. This side needs to come to the fore much more, and I feel it is part of my mission to help bring that message out, end quote. Here again is the minimization of the negative or control aspect of the abduction phenomena by first making out those who see it in a negative light like negative people, drawing this to themselves or manifesting it themselves, then brightening this up with a positive message about having a positive outlook about it. She says, quote, dwelling on the negative side, end quote, making anyone taking the sum of reports as being negative as a person dwelling on negativity, as opposed to pointing out the unpleasant truth. If there is really a positive aspect to the abduction phenomena, I feel this kind of rhetoric does not help intelligent people include it in their thinking. It's like saying a positive aspect to the rape phenomena is that another child is born, and those focusing on the fact that the woman was harmed against her will are dwelling on negativity. I think sensible people are not going to buy it. Speaking of rape, Charmaine says in her interview she was raped repeatedly and had children by it, but she does not see this in a negative light, but sees it has a purpose. Charmaine says, quote, I was then taken to a little room which was circular. Again, there were people in robes, and a black and red being was brought in, and I realized a ritual was about to take place. I was on the floor, naked. Then, the main man in the robes came over, and with a silver blade, cut the palms of myself and the being, and pressed them together. Then a chicken was brought in, which was decapitated, and the man poured its blood over the both of us, and then the being raped me. That's Charmaine Such saying that. She continues on to say, quote, the second time I was taken to that facility, it was to meet the 3 children, but we were not left alone together. We were monitored at all times. I have no recollection of the fathers, or whether it was through rape or implantation, end quote. She continues, I could track him walking along the bed, and I knew it was going to be a rape situation. I was quite frightened, and I communicated telepathically that if this is going to be that kind of experience, I don't want to remember it, and I blacked out. I have had 6 rape experiences with different ETs. One of them was a very ritualistic situation. I'm not sure if it was on this earth or on a ship. Rosario continues, quote, the visitations have changed somewhat. As a child, I never had anything negative. But when I got older, I started having negative experiences and abductions, which included rape experiences. These are discussed in hybrid children section. I'm fortunate in that I don't have the fear that many people do. I'm happy for them to visit and communicate. A lot of people are very frightened. See, they all acknowledge that a lot of people are very frightened by this. They don't know what it is. She goes on to say, but I've been very accepting. So her attitude is to be very accepting of it. Even the rapes haven't upset me, she goes on to say. I felt quite detached from it, and that there is a sense of purpose about it, like it's all meant to be. I might not have full understanding of why these things have to come into play, but I can imagine that this is the right time for them to be happening. Some people have been traumatized and can't get over it, can't talk to people about it. End quote. The above accounts of rape are startling, but what Charmaine says about it is quite interesting. She says, quote, when I got older, I started having negative experiences and abductions, which include rape, end quote. But then, end quote, a lot of people are very frightened, but I've been very accepting. Even the rapes haven't upset me, end quote. So on the one hand, it is a negative experience, and on the other hand, she is very accepting, even happy for them to visit and communicate. This seems like a contradiction. Further, there is a reason we have laws against rape, and those who are found guilty face serious prison time and lifelong consequences. I am mentioning this due to the misconception born of ignorance that women actually enjoy rape, which is not entirely illogical, and many women have even fantasized about it. But in reality, rape is almost exclusively extremely unpleasant for women, wrought with fear, pain, anger, and trauma, both physical and mental. It's hard to enjoy something when you are inundated with fear. To be fair, there is a lot about the alien situation we are not aware of. For instance, maybe their whole culture revolves around such behavior, and females in these alien societies are more accepting and, in fact, able to enjoy this situation. As you will see shortly, Charmaine is indeed a reptilian shapeshifter, and with this much of her alien, she may have an entirely different sensibility to raping than humans have. But the above conflict between negative rape experience and then a positive outlook on it might in fact speak of something else going on. As we can see from these testimonies, one thing is clear: they can control memory. For instance, Charmaine says, quote, as time went on, I found out more and more about people who had had similar experiences, particularly missing time. I had quite a number of them, and the longest period was 6 hours. I just remember a bright light, but I have no memory after that, end quote. What I learned in particular from Dr. Carla Turner and Dr. David Jacobs is that not only is memory blocked, such as with missing time, but false memories are implanted. Dr. David Jacobs describes in detail how many abductees who report a positive experience recall something entirely different when hypnotically regressed. He discovered that many people had painful and traumatic experiences, but their conscious memory had only positive experiences. Could it be that people like Charmaine, even though in fact they are half alien, are mind controlled to the hilt, even in their overall outlook concerning negative experiences? Also, how can we trust their overall opinion of their experience when, by their own admission, they don't remember most of it? A good question is, if what they have experienced was good or acceptable, why are they made to forget large portions, even most of their abduction experiences? Charmaine says, quote, the 3 children that live on the military base are not reptilian. I know I have a hybrid child with a mantis. After a regression with Mary Rodwell, I had an information download where I was shown an experience in a stone room with 3 mantis beings. That was another rape scenario by one of the beings. From what I can recall, I've never seen that child. Again, I don't know if I'm having connections with them, being able to see the children but not remember it. End quote. Charmaine says, eventually we land and I'm carried out and down a slope. It's cold and smells damp. We go down a corridor in an underground facility and I can see bright lights overhead. They turn left into a small, dimly lit room, then take me out of the bag and put me on a bed. There is a small table by the bed and I can see stairs leading down. The man with the blue eyes stays in the room with me and the other man leaves. The men have stayed completely silent. A man that I have not seen before comes into the room with a box and Blue Eyes opens it. It holds a metallic cylindrical implement about 10 to 12 inches long, which has 2 needles coming out of one end and a wire coming out the other. I have a strong sense that it holds a liquid and they will inject me with it. Blue Eyes brings the device to the bed and inserts the 2 needles into my upper left arm. I can feel liquid pumping in. The sensation is very cold, and it seems that the wire coming out the other end of the device is an electronic wire that trails out the door. I have the sense that it's connected to something, but I cannot see what. As well as a cold feeling, my body also feels heavy, and I find it hard to breathe. The men begin to talk, and I hear a kind of electrical whirring noise. They are speaking about starting something, and I have the sense that the liquid that has been injected into my body is to facilitate an electrical impulse inside my body. An electrical current is now coming from the needles and running through my body, and the pulse intensity is increasing. The sensation becomes painful, and the cold is replaced by heat, which increases and continues to be felt throughout my body. The sensation is unlike any other I have felt. I can feel my muscles contracting without me having actively to do this. My bones feel as if they are stretching. I want to move but cannot, nor can I speak. Charmaine goes on to say, my skin feels very tight, as if it's stretching. I can feel my muscles growing, my whole anatomy changing. My fingers feel as if they're getting longer. I feel my tail begin to emerge and grow, and my skin changes to scales. Throughout the shift, I am lying on my back, and I feel a certain familiarity about the change, although I am unfamiliar with the sense of it being forced, taking place quickly and painfully. I can feel my nails touching the bed sheet where they have grown longer. My long hair is gone, my eyes have changed, and I can feel the scales on my skin. I am now in full reptilian form. My mind begins to feel clearer, less groggy and drugged. My body becomes lighter and less affected by the drugs they have given me. I find that I am able to move somewhat, so I begin to think how I can get full control of my body. Blue Eyes takes the cylindrical device away. It's getting easier to move. He continues to watch me, and I have a sense that there are cameras in the room, and others are also observing me. We do not speak. I manage to sit up in bed, and at this point, he leaves and closes the door. I am alone, but the cameras still feel as if they are watching me, and I manage to move enough to sit on the side of the bed with my feet on the floor. I stand up and see myself in my other form. It feels familiar and comfortable, and I feel good. I notice a full-length mirror to the left of the stairs, and I look at my reflection. I have dark green scales, yellow eyes with black slits, a muscular body, a tail, and increased height and body mass. I feel happy to be in my reptilian form, but annoyed that the military has forced me to change shape and angry that they are observing me. They do not have a right to. I had not consented to them taking me by force and forcing me to change shape.
My name is Nasime Sabs.
And she's starting to get that tube thing going in the neck. They've got this I don't know what it is. Some kind of tube that leads down to the chest. Let me show you something because she's what I'm always harping about, trying to teach you guys. Look at the necks. Something the father told me most time when I was talking to him about all this. He told me, because I'm always looking at their eyes, he's like, look at the necks. See this? There's like a huge indent. Everybody has it in Hollywood. Singers have it, celebrities have it. And this is, see the ridges? This, the bone that goes across here. It stops right here, and there's like a deep hole, and then it picks up again on this side and goes this way, this bone. It's really strange. And then notice how the shoulders face up in the back. It's almost like the head just plants down, the neck and kind of planted down, all this. There was a picture of a reptilian. I was going to show you. Maybe I'll find it and throw it in here at the end of the video. And it's part of the structure of the beings that possess these people.
Great kisser, but Julie, I got it. Oh, Julie, women don't have tattoos. You guys are messing with me, right?
Largest broadcaster in the U.S. They have a huge reach. So they have many journalists all over the country. And their stance right now is that they are just promoting, making sure that there is integrity, that there's not fake news. But in
Evolution theory did not start with
Pseudonym, the girlfriend, Megan, pseudonym.
contactees, almost like a cookie cutter stamped out message each of them said. As in any belief system, including one that is apparently an exception in the universe, atheism. So with that, let's take a look at two polar extreme views of the alien abduction phenomenon.
Well, our website is Shatter the Darkness. There's no hidden childhood or what you don't understand. I want to, Lord, is there anything that's been done, anything sent my way up? There may not be the same, we see lost folks, we've dealt with people fully marked amplified. When the word speaks through their mouth and does everything else. If there's someone that says you're a believer and goes that far, then we need to question where you're at. Do you really know were you really born again? And we need to find that out then. So just testing it, checking it, and we'll lead in that to discern it and figure that out. But deal with the demonic stuff. If they're lost for sure, not why. Neither. Since I was told by the FBI the project was over, that was it. It was over.
Ken was removed as CIA program manager shortly before Pat Price's death. Many assumed the CIA involvement.
Okay. Make sure you're incorporated to tell the truth.
Well, actually, people are probably not
They're looking at my undies.
getting rid of about punishment and so I asked more or less freedom in what they do. Running with a different matter and actually tells that people will fund you if you work with anybody else.
Critics who've been interested enough in our work for our laboratory, we have asked them to take part in experiments on experience, which is often very accurate indeed.
One of the biggest skeptics was Undersecretary of Defense Walter LaBerge, who kept hearing leaks about the mad scientists in Menlo Park. So he decided to pay a visit in his Air Force helicopter, landing on the SR on campus lawn and causing quite the dust up to Alan Russ's profile. Although he thought it ridiculous, LaBerge allowed himself to become such, despite no prior psychic experience. He correctly and in great detail imagined where his attaché was like, and became one of the team's biggest supporters, along with other senators, congressmen, and generals who dropped in on the lab and got similar results. It was becoming apparent that this was a common ability, but how did they show them? It was all seen. Their first clue to how common intuitive abilities are came when a remote viewer didn't show up for work.
So I had a chance to go to essentially consider the month. And then each day a remote viewer actually well, in particular, they had a chance to got an airplane, flew out, and so Rustin decided,
SRI's intelligence work with psychics would go on for another decade, or a training program or something.
Bandit to put on the armor room. Come in. I have a family issue and trust as a standard in their reputation because they know that with little or no empirical evidence informs Ashtoreth, singular, and that's that would be really challenging. I would never want that job. So here she's describing a reptilian ambassador. Okay. Well, aside about it. But in reality, rape is almost